come back for the second. India have won the test match. India have won the series. They're going to get back for two. India at home.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the 81 All Out podcast. This is Siddhartha Vaidyanathan at Sidvi on Twitter. And I'm thrilled to be joined today by a special guest, the cricket journalist and author, Bharat Sundaresan. Welcome to the show, Bharat.
Thank you, Sidvi. And I can't believe this is the first time we are ever speaking to each other. So
exactly.
And it's on your podcast, so it can't be better than this.
Yeah, so Bharat is a cricket reporter for crickbuzz.com, and he has done a wonderful job over the last 2 months covering India's tour to Australia. He tweets at BeastieBoy07, so you can follow him there. I'll give a link to his Twitter handle on the show notes. And he's also the author of a book, The Dhoni Touch, which you have probably read anyway. It was a really popular book when it came out, but if you haven't, you should definitely read it. I'll provide a link to it. So, all right, starting out, Bharat, you were probably slightly busy over the last couple of months.
Yeah, I was actually surviving on 1-2 hour sleep cycles. It's been that kind of tour. We all done high profile tours before, India, Australia, Ashes and all that. But this one just seemed very different because you were kept on your feet, not just with what was happening in the cricket was amazing, but all the off-field chatter, all the off-field nonsense about, bubbles and quarantines and where the next test will be. It was just all over the place. And and I've been on the road. I've been driving around Australia literally to escape borders. And to the extent that now I'm stuck in Sydney because I chose the Sydney test over the Brisbane test, and I'm glad I did. But I can't go home to Adelaide because the borders are shut. So as we speak now, tomorrow I leave Sydney and I have to spend 2 weeks in regional New South Wales because South Australia has its borders open to regional New South Wales. So I'm going to go from town to town to town. And then finally after 14 days, go home.
See, you said you chose Sydney wisely over Brisbane, but had you gone to Brisbane, you might have actually got a chance to field as a substitute.
No. See, I was very clear with the Indian team management. I'm coming only if I get a game. Yeah, I'm not coming there to just be run drinks out and all that.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially at the rate at which the Indians were getting hammered and injured, poor guys. I would have been running up and down. Yeah, I would have run more miles than even the batsman in the middle. So I was very clear. Yeah, by my left arm pace, I think T. Natarajan did a good job. I'm proud of him. I love him as a guy. He's such a sweet guy. I'm nothing like him. But I don't know, a Sundaresan over a Natarajan any day, I think.
Yeah, there's not much in the name as well. It's the same. All right. So let me talk a bit about what you already brought up. To cover such a series as a journalist, this must have been a unique experience for you in so many ways. How was it like? Can you give our listeners a brief, to give them a sort of idea of what it took to cover this series with all the precautions and everything going around? And Australia has been has been hit not as bad as so many other countries. So I'm sure the precautions were even more stringent.
Exactly. And one of the first things I heard from some of the Indian players was, why are there so many restrictions? You guys have no cases. And it took a while to explain to them but there are no cases because of the restrictions. And Virat Kohli was the only cricketer I spoke to on the sidelines who actually said, I understand why they have few cases because they have such good systems in place. Everyone else, and I'm not being a Virat Kohli, I'm not plugging how cool he is right here, but or how how worldly wise he is. But I was just surprised. Most others, and Ravi Shastri to an extent as well, he understood the whole, he was really happy with the first 14-day quarantine and he understood the systems in place. But for a lot of them, we were like, "Arey, hum bahar kyun nahi ja sakte? Why can't we go out? Everybody else is roaming around. We'll put a mask on as well." But it took a long time for them to really understand. Maybe a lot of them still went home, still not clear why Australia is so stringent. But as you know, it's Australia and New Zealand are so cut off from the rest of the world. They always are in a state of panic when something like this happens. In terms of Arey, kuch ho gaya, to there are only samundar all around them. No, like where will they go? So, and that has a lot to do with how they dealt with it. So, and each state has its own stringent laws. So they shut each other out. Like Victoria was cut off from Australia for the longest time. Western Australia has cut off the rest of Australia for the longest time. So, and it started like that. I remember on November 18th, I was in Adelaide, like trying to plan my whole trip to Sydney. Should I go now? They were in a bubble, no access, all that. And then suddenly Adelaide went into lockdown. So I just had to jump into a rental car. I drove told like, as my wife, Bondati Koma and I just like jumped into the car and I said, I don't know when I'll be back. And I drove to this little town called Broken Hill, which is a border town, spent a night there in a motel and then drove for some 18 hours to Sydney. And once you reach Sydney, they were practicing behind closed doors. And behind closed doors means we've all been at the NCA or places in. As an Indian journalist, I'm used to having no access. That's fine. But here it was extreme, where Gav Joshi and I went to this place called Blacktown, where they were practicing at the stadium. And there were like security guards everywhere. For some reason, I don't know why, nobody was allowed to see them also. So the only way we could see them was we went into the bush, like we were crawling through the bush and somehow balancing our massive bodies just not slip off and fall down. And we were watching the practice game through the mesh. And I remember the next day, one of the coaches called me and said, like, can you please not do all that? Put your life at risk. There are brown snakes there. We've been told that if the ball goes there, don't go there. So please don't take a chance. Now I will call you and tell you whatever you need. Like, please don't put your lives at risk. But it was adventurous, but it was crazy. Like I said, you didn't know what you're going to get. And half the time you weren't sure whether you would be able to watch the nets or you won't be able to watch the nets. It kind of helped that there weren't like 45 Indian journalists here. From a personal point of view, you had a little more freedom. The Indian team was slightly more relaxed because they didn't, they knew that they weren't like, how the Indian media, Indian cricket relationship is, especially in the last 10 years. It's changed a lot since you left, I'm sure.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah. So they just seem less cagey, and there was freedom. But again, there were no press conferences. Like you couldn't find out anything. Like you didn't have face-to-face conversation. So everything was a Zoom call. So when it came to getting actual quotes, you were just like anyone else, like sitting in India or anywhere else in the world. You just had to log on to the Zoom call. So it was a unique experience. And then of course the SCG test was strange because you had to wear a mask and sit throughout inside the press box. So I was part of the SCN radio commentary panel. I was so grateful because at least for half an hour periods, I could take the mask off so that I could talk. It was strange. It really was strange. And then last minute things could happen. I remember when I did the whole Sydney leg, the 1 day, I went to Canberra and all that. And then at one point we had to leave Sydney because Sydney became a hotspot. So I went home to Adelaide, covered that crazy 36 all out, which we'll talk about. And then Adelaide became a hotspot. So I had to flee to Victoria. I jumped into the car, again, spent another night at a border town. And that's when I finally, after Melbourne, there was this confusion about Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide. And then you had to take a call. Like, should I go to Sydney and risk missing Brisbane? Or should I go to Sydney and write a lot of stories which will try to make sure that the fourth test stays in Sydney? I failed in that quest, but yeah. So it's been all over the place. Like it's been much more than just a cricket tour.
Wow, this sounds like some serious commando journalism that you and Gav have done, risking your life to go and watch a net session. I don't think any journalist has risked so much to watch a net session, but that's great commitment on your part for sure. And also the other point that struck me was wherever you went, it became a hotspot. So is there some kind of connection there?
Yeah, I know. And I did get like COVID tested as well. I will tell you this is a confession. So when we went from Adelaide to Victoria, like I said, we jumped into my car, and that's why I still have the car here. My wife also came along. Gav was with me. And I was last 2 days, like I had that joram feeling. I was like, yo, full press box is gone. Like everybody's gone because I was there, right? And
the tour itself is, the players are also not too far from you. Yeah.
No, exactly. And like I had fist bumped a few of them as well. So, And Inga, unlike in India, because and in the US and the UK, there are so many cases. Inga, jada se jada, there are 3-4 cases. So you are named and not named and shamed, but like their name will come out. 35-year-old Indian cricket journalist, like, test positive, no andar ko. But this is how extreme it was. On the last day, right, the 36 all out, a lot of journalists, I don't think, really focused on the game till you realize that what the hell is happening here. Because that morning as we walked in, the security lady had like a piece of paper with a lot of Sydney suburbs written down. And she asked you, oh, so have you been to any of these suburbs? So I said, no, not really. She said, okay. I said, what would have happened if I had been? Oh, no, nothing, nothing, son. Like, we would have given you a mask, asked you to wait. The cops would have come and taken you to a motel. So, like, thank God I didn't. So
this was during the one dayers, when you were there for the one.
Yes. So because I had been in Sydney for the warm-up game, more than the one days, that second
warm-up game.
Warm-up game. Yeah. So, I go upstairs and like there are 2-3 Sydney-based journalists who are like packing up and leaving. Ian Chappell had been asked to leave.
This was all as India were collapsing.
Yes, this is all like, for example, when Bumrah when Bumrah gets out, I remember being at the back of the box. We saw it as like, theek hai, be like, now good, Pujara will come and start batting. Like he'll take care of the next 1 or 2 hours while we can figure out.
Bumrah was the night watchman. Correct.
Night watchman. Yeah. So we were all like, we tried to figure out what to do. Ponama, Illaya, like, should we stay in Adelaide? Should we go to Sydney? And then like one more wicket fell. Then another one. We're like, wait. I think there's something more happening here. Yeah. But trust me, 36 all out, I think was the greatest thing that could have happened to the series. A, because it added to the whole drama and it adds to what India have achieved. But also, if 36 all out had not happened, there's a good chance the whole press pack would have not covered another test match because we would all have been stuck there. It just happened on the right day so that we could all flee to Melbourne or out of Adelaide at that point. So,
if the game had continued for one more day, then you guys would have just been stuck in Adelaide.
We wouldn't have been able to leave. So, yeah, God bless India. God bless 36 all out. It'll be remembered for different reasons. But, like Ravi Shastri has said it, wear it as a badge of honor. Like, I think for us, it was just a savior. At least it saved 90% of the tour for us.
Wow. So as the team was collapsing in the field, there was some collapse happening in the press area as well, with other people being asked to leave.
Definitely. They were like, it just emptied randomly. After a point, there were only like 5 or 6 guys there. There were a few Sydney journalists who left in the morning. So they reached home in time to watch the collapse. But they were crazy scenes. And it kind of continued. Even during the Melbourne test, like I said, because they were preparing a second pitch right next to the pitch that they played at the Boxing Day test on. Because nobody knew. And then, like we all know, once we reached Sydney, the whole we won't go to Brisbane, we will go to Brisbane, toilets area, this area, all that happened. And it was just one of those things that at every step, you see, you've done so many cricket tours. Generally, the schedule is planned way in advance, right? In the date, I'm going from here to there. This is where I'll be staying, sort of. But here, you as a journalist had to take so many decisions on like, should I cover this? Do I need to cover that? Should I take this chance? And can I go to this net sessions? Like, if I go to this net session, they might say, oh, you're not wearing a mask or you've been here. Because Australia has dealt with the virus in that way. You could just have gone to have a cup of coffee in one suburb. And tomorrow, if the postcode pops up as a hotspot, you're screwed. So, so you always, after a point, you just said like the Indian team, I also decided, all right, chalo, we'll just go and see. Like, hua to hua. And
So talking about that 36 all out, so India get bowled out for 36 and Kohli has chosen to go home. That's known from the beginning. And Shami gets injured in that final moment. So, generally, I know they usually there's a lot of chatter among journalists and in the reporters. What I guess the mood around then was, oops, are we looking at a 4-0 or are we looking at a 3-0 kind of thing?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't sit here and lie saying that, oh, no, I still thought India would fight back. See, but the only thing was, Sidvi,
Sid is fine. Sid is fine. Sid will be fine.
Yeah. The only thing about it was it still felt like a freak show. Like I have never seen a period of play where there were no plays and misses. Everything caught the edge. Every catch was taken. So in a way, you realize that India dominated that test match. It wasn't your classic Indian defeat where they'd just been pummeled to the ground and then finally the collapse happened, which we've seen in the past. This was just a freak thing. Like India should have been at least 150 runs ahead if they had just taken a few catches. That whole Ajinkya Rahane, Virat Kohli run out was the first turning point. And it felt like India did lose their dignity that day by finishing up 36 all out. It almost didn't feel like, oh God, this is the start of a terrible tour. It almost felt like, ye kaisa hua? Like, what is happening here? Like, how is this possible? Was the general feeling more than the same old, we've been here before, because we've never been there before. I don't think any of us had seen a 36 all out, like the 81 all out, which is the name of your podcast, which is such a different kind of contest. India collapsing on the last day. This was just weird. And I think the bigger news story that day was Mohammad Shami, because for us, he's been the go-to bowler for India for so long. And honestly, none of us knew what Siraj was going to do at test level. We'd heard about him taking a lot of first-class wicket. I personally had not seen much of him with the red ball. So I was not sure what Siraj is going to do. And then you were like, wow, Umesh Yadav is suddenly a senior bowler now. It's his fourth tour, but he almost didn't make it to the first playing 11. When they landed here, he bowled well in the warm-up games, which is what got him that place. And now he's the senior bowler alongside Bumrah. That was a bigger concern than, Kohli is gone, 36 all out, this team's gone. Because they dominated that test. It was just a weird feeling, a weird day.
So what is your theory? I mean, this is a more broader question that do you think there is a connection between the whole bubble and COVID and the number of times players were getting hit and the number of injuries that was happening? Was there some kind of correlation between the lack of being, the usual practice, the usual discipline, usual regime? Or was it just like the freak shows? People just happened to get injured. Like Mayank Agarwal got injured in a net session, right? I mean, what was that about, man?
No, but we'll start with that net session. See, there was this terrible net in the MCG practice area. There were 2 or 3, but there was one net where everyone was getting hit. So Pujara, that's where Pujara actually hurt his finger. The finger that he finally again got hit on. He got hit. Prithvi Shaw got hit. Manas Labuschagne got hit. Matthew Wade got hit. All in the same net, and Mayank Agarwal as well. In fact, I kind of take responsibility for David Warner playing the third and fourth test, because what happened just before I think this was 2 days out from the Boxing Day test, so December 24th, Australia finished their net session. And finally, Smith and Manas finished. And it's cute, when Smith and Manas are there, some coach will come out and say, how long for you guys? How long to go for you guys now? It's
They never stop.
They never stop, yeah.
Huh.
So at least Manas has stopped doing the whole, I'll only leave after Smith leaves drama. He leaves before Smith now, yeah. So they left, and then David Warner and Sean Abbott came out because they weren't part of the bubble. So this was literally like a fitness test trying to see if they can hit the ball, or Sean Abbott could bowl. And so at this point, it was just Melinda Farrell and I who were still left there. I mean, we were mostly, when it came to the Australia nets, we were the only 2 ones watching the nets. So David Warner comes out, and the entire camp had left, the Australian team had left, and he starts warming up, and then he walks into the same net, which the Australians had actually abandoned because Manas had been hit that day. So he walks in, and I'm like, well, I don't think he should be facing Sean Abbott on that pitch. When yeah. So I just looked at Mel and I said, this is David Warner. I don't know him too well. Of course, we know each other. He knows this face. It's unfortunately very difficult to forget. But can you just I think we should tell him. So Mel just shouted out to him, David. You know how the MCG nets are, in the basement, like a zoo. And he looked up and he looked away, and again, second time, both of us shouted and said, I don't think you should be batting in that net. And he just looked at us gave us a very quizzical expression. I said, because a lot of your guys have been hit. In fact, Manas was hit and he moved out. Of course, David Warner, being David Warner, didn't trust us. The team doctor was somewhere. He asked the team doctor, is something wrong with this net? And he must have said something. So he left the net and went to the other net. Because I'm telling you, he would have been hit and that would have been the end of David Warner. India might have won 3-0. So sorry, India.
Oh, wow. But it's great, because had David Warner not been there, then again people would have said, if Warner was there, then India have won the match.
That was correct. That was my intention. Yeah.
So you did a great thing. You removed the asterisks from the series win. That
Very
is
good.
the brilliant thing you have done.
Of course. I made sure that, the Smith Warner thing, you're right. Yeah, because for 2 years they've said, no, you won only because there were no Smith and more people in India have said that than in Australia, to be honest. So,
India only. Australians actually, they're going to Ashes. They lost without McGrath and all. They didn't make a big deal about it. But India has to have the perfect opponent and they have to win the perfect day.
Yeah, exactly. Which they did eventually, but
I mean, they won with like a C team, so there is absolutely nothing that they can question now. So going from Adelaide to Melbourne, you were in Melbourne. We just spoke about it, but how different was it there? How was Victoria generally in terms of? Jared Kimber calls it the Republic of Victoria. Like basically, it's like a different country. And I think the Victorians also, many think it's a different country that they're living in. So, but generally, how are the protocols there? What were the COVID challenges there? And also about the match, about, the fight back from 36 all out to actually come back and win the very next test.
Exactly. Yeah. See, we were very lucky in Adelaide. Like, we were hardly hit by the virus to the extent that we had 30, 40 cases overall. And life was very normal. I had not worn a mask at all throughout 2020. And my wife is a teacher, so her school never stopped. I think at times she would say, everyone else in the world has got at least 1 day leave. Like, we are the only ones, like teachers in Adelaide, the schools have stayed open. So we've not had even one COVID chutti.
You guys are living on another planet, basically, essentially.
Absolutely. I'll be honest, Sid, like, when people from India would call and say, like, how's it there? So, and this is not the time when anyone wants to live vicariously through, So I couldn't say, we're just stepping out for dinner. I just got some coffee. I'm like going to a party. All that I couldn't say. So I was like, yahan pe bhi hai. Like, I never elaborated on yahan pe kya hai. Like, but you had to, because it felt wrong at times, It felt like, and I remember how they would get like really when there would be one or two cases like that would just pop up from nowhere. I remember this news bulletin very clearly when like the Indians, Indians living in Australia who had been stranded overseas were coming back. And there was this news bulletin which said, has Adelaide become the dumping ground of the virus? And then they show this bus full of like Indian uncles, going towards the quarantine hotel, just because 2 new cases had popped up from this Indian flight, flight from India, which had landed. And they were all residents of Australia. They weren't like tourists or visitors.
Wow.
So, that's how strange, that's how they were reacting. That's how panicky they were, for good reason. So we had not felt the virus at all. So when I went to, and even Sydney was okay. I didn't have to wear a mask. So when we went to Victoria, I remember, like I said, my wife came with me. We were like, okay, now pandemic. Because everywhere you have to wear a mask. Inside an Uber, you have to wear a mask. So it felt odd, having to wear a mask when you had heard of people having done it for like 10, 12 months already at that point. But Victoria, you could see, was trying to bounce back because they'd been shut for so long, more than any other state at that point in Australia. So they were just like coming out for the first time for a lot of Victorians, going to a cafe. I remember meeting Dan Breddick and his wife for coffee somewhere. And they were like, this is like, I don't like it. We've forgotten what it feels like to come out and have a meal outside. So they were kind of just coming off this terrible second wave where they had been put into lockdown for a long time. And the MCG also felt so different because generally whenever you're watching nets at the MCG, there'll be all these massive tourist buses which will come, and like a lot of Indian tourists generally will come and start taking pictures and start shouting out stuff for the Indian cricketers. Somebody will get pissed off with someone. None of that happened. It carried a very Like there were people, I mean, there were still some Indians who rocked up to see the teams practice and all that. But yeah, there was an empty feeling. It felt weird. Like you could hear the ball hit bat like a lot more than you generally do in the MCG nets. And going to the match itself, like Boxing Day, yeah, and the dhols were banned as well inside the ground. So the whole Bharat, I mean, those guys were there outside. They created quite that atmosphere, that classic atmosphere which we never see in India, but we always see when India is overseas. So that was there, but like, yeah, Boxing Day didn't feel like that Boxing Day, like, you know, and at the MCG, like there's this whole like drama around it. Even last year when Australia and New Zealand played, there was that buzz around Boxing Day. But
yeah, I mean, and just walking to the MCG on Boxing Day is a different feel altogether.
Exactly, right? Yeah, but this time it just felt a little different. Like, yeah, it seemed more peaceful. Yeah, and of course, like you had to, like, you know, like it was different walking in. You had to scan in all the time. Like, you know, yeah, your temperature was getting checked, and if you had just walked a little fast, your temperature would be a little too high. They'll ask you to wait, and then they'll test you again. I mean, all little irksome things. Like you can't complain about those things.
First world problems.
First world problems. Yeah. Spoiled now, like, yeah, when you've been living in Adelaide, you will get spoiled. So then even the press box was very empty. So as you know, the MCG press box, it's cramped, but generally you have two people sitting on the same desk. But this time they had like spread everyone out, and there was even like a welcome note, welcome Bharat Sundaresan. I've never felt so welcome in any cricket press box in the world. So it had details of like what you will eat. I felt like I've never traveled anything but economy, like on a flight, but this felt like this is what first class must be like, you know, there was menu and all, what you'll get to eat. I was like, oh, thank you. So that was an interesting feeling. And see, I think for me, it was also different because I was doing a lot of radio commentary. Like, you know, I got to get a break from the whole print like area and like watch it from, and the radio boxes generally have the best view, even better than the cricket press boxes, because Australia cricket press boxes are slightly to the side, not like in England where you're right above the bowler's arm. So that helped, like, you know, doing some radio and kind of getting a feeling of what the former cricketers were thinking, whether it's Brad Haddin, Ian Healy, Chris Rogers, these guys, whatever, Simon O'Donnell. Like, so that whole, and we will talk about it, I'm sure, the whole awe around India that started building in, it started at the MCG. Like, it was good sensing it from those guys, like, who were used to seeing Indian teams come and when put under pressure, maybe not performing at their best or actually crumbling at times. So, and that's what the test match was all about. On the morning when Australia won the toss, elected to bat, it felt like it was a sunny day. It felt like a batting day. And generally that's what Australia do, right? They win the toss and they'll put they'll be like 150 for one before you know it, except that one Ashes test. So, and Joe Burns scored that 50 in the second innings in Adelaide. And in the nets, you could see Justin Langer was getting more and more comfortable with the Joe Burns form. Like, it went from, I tweeted about it went from nice, Joe, and then to like, good, Burnsy. And then on the last day, it was excellent, Burnsy, excellent. So, and like, you could see Joe Burns suddenly had a swagger back. He looked good. So you felt, this is it. Like, this is going to be, and Matthew Wade, the way he started, you felt, yeah, maybe now in Australia will just bat India out of the game. But the way they kept fighting back and bring, like, you know, when Ashwin came on, right? I think Ashwin for me is the man of the series. He bowled beautifully in Adelaide, but the way he came on and like, he suddenly didn't just put pressure on them. It looked like he was going to take a wicket at any point. That really changed the whole series. That's where the turnaround began. I thought that Ashwin spell, Ajinkya Rahane as captain, like, I've seen a lot of him in Bombay. Like, so I knew he was not going to be, he won't be Virat Kohli. And for Australia, the whole tour was built around Kohli, King Kohli. I saw more of Kohli in the papers, in the news, on TV here than I would have been in India in the build up to this tour. So the whole thing was, who will replace, like, how can this guy, they kept asking me was like, so what kind of a captain will he be? Like, not aggressive, right? I said, he'll be quietly aggressive. He knows to lead a team. He's done it before. And he's led India as well, even as captain and even as vice captain. He had that record, right? I remember on Sri Lanka tour, every time Kohli left the field, a wicket fell.
And also that Dharamshala test, which he captained. Yeah, when Kohli was
Absolutely. Yeah, he asked for 5 bowlers and he won that test. Yeah, won the series. So, and you could see that it was a different India in the sense there was a little more. Everybody was being themselves in a way, right? And I've always had this theory that when Virat Kohli is captain, whether it's a good captain or a bad captain, the thing is, every player is trying to live up to his expectations. Like here, you could see that they were just living up to their own expectations. Like the way Ashwin was that day, the way the bowlers, Jasprit Bumrah just took over the whole bowling attack. He was putting an arm around everyone. He was captaining the bowlers. Like there were many leaders on the field, you could see, and that had an impact. And of course, that Rahane century was like I think one of his best knocks ever. And it also proved to you that he's the only guy who scored, not many Indians have scored the amount of tough runs that he has. All like Lord's 100 or MCG 2014 or even against South Africa. And this was right up there. And it was his moment, right? Like because he'd run Kohli out as well. I mean, it was just a random run out. He wasn't a villain. But more than in India, here, Australia painted him out to be a villain because it stole that extra 20 minutes of Virat Kohli from their screens. so
it stole that extra few millions that they could have, had with Kohli around.
pretty much. So it was, it just like, they just fell in love with Rahane over the first 2 or 3 days. The way he was captaining, like I said, that innings, and it just, who else scored runs? It feels like so long back, that Melbourne test.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, the Rahane 100 was the main highlight of that innings. Yeah,
it was the highlight. It absolutely was. Yeah, and that set the tone. And you also then realize that this Australian team, the batting was like, if the bowling is 9 out of 10, the batting is kind of 3 out of 10. Like Smith and Manas, like Ashwin had sorted both of them out. Like it gotten into their head, you could see. I remember at one point, Smith at the non-strikers end is like shadow batting for Ashwin while Bumrah is bowling, and Ashwin is standing right in front of him at mid-on. So that's how much he'd gotten into their head. So it was a great win, but it was the kind of, at that point I said it's the greatest comeback win. Who knew this gap? So you have to thoda chadao it, right? Like, so it felt like a great win because of also the fact that Umesh Yadav went away. We saw the first signs of what Mohammad Siraj would be like. Yeah. And for me, the man who turned it around in that game was Ravindra Jadeja, of course. Like, so that's the day he proved to me. I realized that India have been like, it's that proper scene. No, you've been sitting on an all-rounder for this long, but you've just gone around saying, no, we want seam bowling all-rounder, we want this all-rounder. So he should play at number 7 every time India play a test match anywhere. And then you just, the bowling attack, you can like form based on conditions and all that. So he was a huge factor in that game. Like the partnership he had with Rahane, every time he got the ball, he took wickets, and it was a great win.
And he was getting wickets even when there was no spin. I mean, he was beating batsmen in the air, getting them out of Yorkers.
Yeah, exactly. He was cleaning up the tail. He's literally cleaning up the tail. So it was a fabulous win, but it kind of, even though it felt greater than most other comeback wins that India had, it still felt that, but India have done this before. Like they come back, whether it's South Africa 2006, it was routed in the one days, they come and win that test in Joburg, or so many tests like Perth, when put under the pump, they have nothing to lose, they'll come back and win a test. So it was in that genre, but a little more special because of losing Kohli, Shami, Umesh. And having at that point, we thought that was an inexperienced bowling attack, but we little did we know what was to come.
Yeah, so talk a bit about, you did touch upon it, talk a bit about Mohammad Siraj, because that's pretty much that was his debut. And so he comes in, and then, Umesh gets injured in the second innings, but the way the bowling attack lifts itself up, with Bumrah was of course still there, but Bumrah, Siraj, and then the spinners, Ashwin and Jadeja coming in. I mean, they pretty much, they went in with 5 bowlers, but they finished the test with 4 bowlers perfectly fine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the beauty of having Jadeja on the side, right? Like, and he played more as a batting all-rounder, if you notice. Like, he was used where he didn't bowl too many overs in that game, but whenever he did, he had an impact. So, and he batted like a proper. I have not seen any batsman middle the ball more for like throughout his innings than Jadeja did. Of course, Shubman Gill then. But at that point, and that was also the Shubman Gill debut as well. So there's so much to talk about each test match.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gill's debut and Siraj's debut. Gill, of course, we'll talk about more in the subsequent tests.
Yes, yeah.
But any observations you had about, Siraj coming into that Melbourne test? Because until then, he was like, you wrote this lovely piece about him and how he had been messaging Bharat around since 2014, when he was with him at the IPL. And it was almost like he was telling Arun, he was saying, pick me, I'm ready. And that's rare for an uncapped bowler.
Exactly. That confidence that you have to call the Indian coach or one of the head coaches and say, like, pick me in the Indian team. Like, because when I spoke to Arun, I asked him, wait, sir, did he say pick me in the bring me to the nets as a net bowler? Or illa, he wanted to be in the Indian team. Like, see, like, there were signs, because that day when I crawled up the slope in Blacktown, like, battling snakes, was the day was his first day outside his room after his dad passed away. And just the way he ran in, I remember he got Shikhar Dhawan and Mayank Agarwal out. It's a practice game. And you could see that, like, and of course, everyone rushed to him at the same point, like hugged him, like, put an arm around him. But there was something about him. That was the first time I saw him, and I was like, like, he's moving the ball around. He's got that nip, like he's got that skid of the pitch. He looked like a proper bowler. And later on, they would tell me that was the day they realized that this guy could fit into our plans. Like this plan we've come here on this tour with, of eliminating the offside, just bowling straight and like suffocating them. He was the perfect bowler for that. And during that MCG test, he just improved with every spell. This first spell was not the worst for a debutant, but he just kept improving. And like, what you could see, I think the one thing everybody was getting excited about was his energy. Like every LBW shout was out. Like he would run all the way to Rahane and then like stand behind the stumps like a keeper and tell him it was in line. So I think they wasted 2 reviews based on Siraj's excitement. That was like, but even there, he stopped doing that after that. This first innings, he was so excited. Even in the second innings, he wasn't that crazy with his LBW appeal, but he just improved with every spell. It looked like, I remember writing, Shubman Gill batted like he would play 100 tests, and Siraj bowled like he had played 50 tests. Like he just had that self-belief and that maturity to keep improving and learning on the go. And that's where I think he and Bumrah formed that great bond. Like Bumrah was in his ear, like not just on the field, even when they were walking off, Bumrah was always with him. So I wasn't surprised when he went and hugged Bumrah, like, when he took this 5th 5-wicket haul eventually. So you could see that there's something about him, but even then, like I said, nobody knew how special he was going to be.
Yeah, and that's interesting because in Melbourne, Bumrah was always in his ear. And by the time you reach Brisbane, Siraj was always in Natarajan's ear or Saini's ear. So within 2 tests, Siraj had become the leader of the attack.
Yeah. In fact, even in Sydney, like though Saini was kind of ahead of Siraj in the pecking order when they landed here, even in Sydney, when Saini made his debut, like Siraj was doing the same. Like he was always like in Saini's ear. I remember asking him in the Zoom call. He said that, I was just telling him that, see, we both have played so much India A. What you have to do there is what you have to do here. I've also realized, like in my 2 test matches that I played. So yeah, it was an extraordinary tour for many reasons, but Siraj is one of the key figures in that story.
And the other thing about Siraj, of course, is that the fact that, as a bowler so young, as a cricketer so young, he decided that it's time to call out the names that the crowds were calling out. We still don't know exactly what happened, so we don't want to get into those details. But the fact is that here was a guy who felt that this was time that he makes that report. And you said that, he spoke to the coaches and then they asked him to listen to what they were saying. And then he went and did that. I mean, how often does that happen with a young cricketer,
It takes a lot of confidence and a lot of courage to actually react to that. Like, so the easiest thing to do is, like I said, like you correctly said, we don't have to get into whether it was racial or not, but any kind of abuse is you just ignore it. Like you're a young guy, like playing on your first major tour. And I'm sure you've heard that, Australia crowds will say something. You can just shut yourself out and let it all build up within. But the fact that, yes, the team management and the senior players need to be applauded for having given them the freedom, the younger players, that if you hear something, you might hear something in Sydney, immediately come and report to us. So he did that. But the second time around, when he just said, enough is enough, I'm not going to continue with this, and he walked and stopped play. For me, it was like a great moment, not just for the series, but for anyone who gets abused anywhere, like where you have to call people out and stand up and say, this is not done. Like, I mean, if you can't take things, matters into your own hands, you have to, like, take it to the authorities, do the right thing. And I thought it showed again a lot about like how mature this guy is. And then when I wrote that story, that now where that confidence comes from. Like, that when he just walked up to Bharat Arun, never having met him before, as a 20-year-old, and says, "Sir, aap thoda encouragement do, main dekho kidhar tak jaunga, main jaan de dunga." Now it all makes sense. Like, that's the kind of guy he's and no surprises that he's become so popular. They're all you can see they're all so overjoyed for his success.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, and players taking a lead makes such a incremental difference to battling these issues. I mean, whether it's match fixing, whether it's racism, if all it takes is that one player to stand up and make that complaint and say it's wrong, and then the sort of the snowballing effect can be quite immense, and players underestimate the power they have for that, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times I think they feel like that's not our job, is only to play cricket. Our job is only to bat and bowl. But it's your sport. Like, it's their sport. It's
also partly your job to keep it clean. Yeah.
Exactly. It's your responsibility, like, to keep it clean. Like, it's your product. So you're responsible for how it's perceived by everyone, by fans, sponsors. Yeah, because you grow with the sport, right? So it's your responsibility to keep it clean. And also to make sure, like you correctly said, that you call out things which should not be happening. So it was a great moment for cricket itself. I think a lot of Australian cricketers, Nathan Lyon and all, also came and said, yeah. I mean, he set a blueprint. Like, that's what we should do. See, because it's not. We will be kidding ourselves if we say it's only Australian crowds who abuse brown people. Nothing. I mean, I was at the Ashes 2 years ago, and the Edgbaston crowd, I mean, it was quite nasty. Like, it didn't. Yes, okay, it's Australia that come back from Sandpaper Gate, but after a point, it reached like nasty levels, which is not good at all. And yeah, maybe now if it happens again, Smith and Warner might speak out. Like, so thanks to Siraj. And doing all that in your second Test match is just remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. And irrespective of which part of the world, I mean, wherever you are, players have to, and the least what they can do is report. We are not expecting them to educate crowds on or anything. But if you make the report, then that itself has a big effect. Okay, so coming to Sydney, which again, you've told us that all the struggles that you went through to actually get there. But, the Sydney, of course, Brisbane has happened now, and it is such a high that it's difficult. But the Sydney Test was a test and a half, to go to play. I mean, those 5 days of intensity and the thing, it must have been something else to actually be there and watch it with the Indian players, of course, falling, breaking their bones one after the other, but still hanging out.
It was seriously, I know, like you said, the Gabba win will go down in history as like the greatest win maybe ever for an Indian team away from or even at home. But the Sydney Test was greater. I thought that's where this Indian team showed that, like, the spirit, the character that the series will be celebrated for. Because it came from nowhere. Like, there was rain on day one, and Smith and Manas finally seemed to have found their mojo. I remember the nets in Melbourne and in Sydney, like before the test, Langer was like psyching Smith up. Like, he kept calling him warrior. Like, he pretended to be Ashwin. He's like, Ashwin into the attack, mate. And then he's like, and he like bowled some with the Wanger. He was doing something, and then Smith.
Because that was before that test, Smith had actually admitted, which was a remarkable admission. He said Ashwin had kept him, quiet. He said, I have let Ashwin dictate terms. I mean, here you have the best batsman in the world, and saying this is amazing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And he had really like gotten into his head, like I said, and he had been dictating terms. So you could see that Smith realized the only thing he could do is jump out and like start hitting him, put the pressure back on him. And it started in the next one. Like I said, every time he would be Ashwin. And then, Ashwin would be ashamed to see how Langer was pretending to be. It was some shit bowling, really. With the sidearm, but still. So, and then Smith would jump out and say, the Warriors back. And then at one point, I remember he played this forceful paddle sweep, and Smith says, that'll knock the leg slip out. I mean, that'll get rid of leg slip. And then Langer's like got into like a Sachin chant and all. It was just strange seeing the whole psych up process. And come to the SCG, like rain affected, like I said, but Smith and Manas were flowing. Like, Smith put the pressure, he hit that straight 4 of Ashwin, and you could see the pressure was finally like, being put on the Indian bowlers. And then you were like, okay, maybe this is where the fight ends. Because you started getting that feeling that like, that hollow feeling of, okay, maybe this is it. Like that was
this is when Australia bat India out of the match.
Absolutely, exact. And I was all set to write that piece that day or the next day where like that whole thing, where the shift happens, and then like this felt like a day of any other day from any other India tour of Australia in the past. Not 2018-19 so much, but the other ones. So
2011 maybe or 2014.
Yeah, exactly. So and with Steve Smith as well, right? Like he was 2014, especially he couldn't stop scoring runs. Then you come to the next day, and that was the first time India showed that thing that no, this is a very different Indian team. Like they fought back, and that's the match situation or type of scenario where Australia generally come and knock you out, right? Like that's when they keep punching you, they'll make 450 and they'll just bat you out of the game. But then like I think at 200 for 2, you felt that like first hour I thought India bowled beautifully. They didn't give anything away. I remember 11 overs, some 22 runs. And I remember being on air and I said, this is great. I mean, this is when generally Australia get a move on, these two set guys. But even then you felt, okay, fine. Like, especially after last summer when Manas and Warner and even Smith, though he didn't make 100, they couldn't stop scoring runs. I thought this is just a throwback to 1 year ago. And they will now get a move on. And then wickets start falling. And Jadeja was the Jadeja was the man who turned it around. Like got Manas out. And then Bumrah, I don't remember what's now. And Smith makes the 100. And you still felt that, before Smith made the 100, wickets started falling. Like, then Wade gets out. And then you're like, okay, this is a mini collapse. Okay, but this will be the big Cam Green day. I really thought so. Because Cam Green made that 40 odd in Melbourne and he's been built up so much here. You felt, okay, now and Will Pucovski has made his debut. He's made a chancy 60, but he's looked really good. Now Cam Green, the new blonde bombshell or whatever from Australia has arrived.
The new Keith Miller.
New Keith Miller, new Ricky Ponting, everything put into one. So I thought this could be the Cam Green day. Then he gets out. And then Tim Payne
I think Bumrah gets him out, right?
Exactly. Bumrah with the second new ball, got both of them out. And then you're like, hey, okay, this is kind of strange. I didn't expect this. But then you felt, this could be that game when Stark will come and make that 60. And then
when the tail will wag forever. And
exactly. And then they'll be everyone will be like, why can't India get rid of the tail? And the famous Sunandan Lele question to MS Dhoni, which I think led to MS Dhoni saying, I don't want to play test cricket anymore. हमारा पूछ Doberman की तरह और उनका पूछ हनुमान की तरह क्यों है? That's the reason.
Dhoni retired.
बस हो गया सर, मुझे नहीं खेलना और test cricket. So, but I thought all that was going to start again. But then wickets kept falling. And then I remember that Stark-Smith partnership where Smith started getting desperate. He was on 98. And he was getting worried that I won't even get to 100. And, then he gets to 100. Then he started opening up, right? Then you thought, maybe it'll be that number 11 partnership, 70, 80 runs where Smith. And it started looking like that. And then Jadeja that pulls off that run out, which I remember bumping into him the next day. I said that Kamal kiya yaar, I've seen so many run outs. And he's like, nahi, mera bhi ye sabse favorite run out tha.
Oh, really? When he hit that middle stump, even though he could only see the leg stump.
Exactly. And he came also from well outside the 30-yard circle, collected. It was just an extraordinary run out. And then you're like, Australia didn't even make 400. Okay, that's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Jeff Lemon who said it was a collapse in slow motion. It didn't seem like a collapse, but actually it was a collapse. The way they fell so with after Manas and Smith, it was quite a big collapse for them.
Absolutely. Jadeja and Bumrah just kind of ran through them, and Siraj as well bowled really well. And then tuck, they all started falling, and you're like, okay, okay, fine. They've not made 400, but they still have a big enough total. Pitch is up and down and all Steve Smith said. So yeah. And then India come out, and then wickets start falling. They are they what 100 and not too many for 6 or 7, if I'm not mistaken, right? I'm getting everything mixed up. Sid, it's been just a few weeks, but
no, it's totally understandable and it's okay. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, they lost 5 or 6 within like 120 or 130. Yeah.
Right. Correct. And then and then that's when Rishabh Pant gets hit, and then Jadeja gets hit, and and they're like, but they still battle through the pain, and that was the injury day. Correct. Everybody started getting hit, and then you were like, okay, now see, Jadeja is ruled out. You could see that every time you looked at your phone, Jadeja has gone for scans. Actually, no, I was the one who was taking these horrible pictures and saying Jadeja has gone for scan, where you could see some a blurred image of nothing, but it seemed to but what I was trying to say on Twitter was he's gone for scans. You couldn't make out what was. I didn't have to put the picture up, but I just did, and a lot of people were wanted to fund start a GoFundMe campaign to buy me a new phone. I was very, very appreciative of that. For the horrible pictures I was posting, but it started like that. Jadeja went, Pant went, Pujara was battling through the finger injury. He kept changing his gloves, and you were like,
I just checked the scorecard. It was basically it was 195 for 5, not 120. 195 for 5, exactly, and then basically from 195 they fell for 244. That's correct. That was the collapse. Yeah,
that was a collapse. Rishabh Pant got hit and then he got out. Yes, correct. And then the collapse happened. Jadeja scored some runs late in the day, and then that was the only time in the series uske baad where you felt like this was a proper India's day, one of those classic old twos, because Australia was batting for declaration, and that's when they come into their own. Davy Warner will come and make a quick fire 80 or 100, and that's what you felt. But I thought the comeback really started on the morning of day 4. Even though Australia dominated, even though it will be known for the day Siraj brought play to a stop because he heard abuse and he stood up like everybody should, or for Cam Green's sixes, I said Green turned into Hulk, because he was smashing the ball, and you felt and Smith was batting really well. He made 80 odd. Ashwin did get him out, but he was batting 80 odd. But I thought India bowled really well. It didn't feel like the Indian team of old at all. They bowled with great control. Even to get to the declaration before the Cam Green cameo, it felt like they did not put their head down. In fact, Navdeep Saini bowled beautifully in the second innings. He got a couple of wickets, and you were like, this is still a remarkable. You can't call it a day of where it was just India, the Indian team of the past, because they bowled really well. They bowled with control. They never let Australia dominate. Australia Neto would have killed you, and by tea they would have been 500 ahead. They just
they just looking at the scorecard again. Second innings, a team going for a declaration is going at 3.5 and over, 3.58, which Australia could have easily. I mean, Australia bowled would have gone for 4.5 and over easily. Towards the last 10 overs, they would have smashed probably 60, 70 runs also.
Exactly. And 3.5, despite that Cam Green cameo, when he started hitting those sixes. So it tells you how much, or that the Indians did put the shackles on them. They never let them, and that was the whole story of the series. No, Australia was trying to break free, and let me, this is my series. You're all injured, beaten. They were literally trying to break away, but the Indians kept holding on to their foot, and then they went to their leg, and and finally they held them, grabbed them, pushed them in the back, and they surged on. So.
I'm imagining you can't see Bharat on video, of course, but I'm imagining a Rajinikanth move that you just did right now. Vidida.
It felt like that. It felt like they just were annoyed, how can this team just not go down? I'm a big pro wrestling guy. So it felt like one of those, they kept putting the submission on, and they wasn't even reaching the ropes. They were doing that classic one time hand down, second time, and third time they were just somehow hanging in there, not giving up. So
how would you, just to interrupt you, this is a very interesting thing. So if you just sitting down today, how would you, what are the two characters from world wrestling that you would pick to characterize the teams, especially in Brisbane, that Brisbane contest?
Brisbane contest, I called it the end of the Undertaker streak. No, so there's a whole built around, but it wasn't Brock Lesnar ending the Undertaker streak. It was some like Pavam mid-carder who's like, never
Yeah,
won
that's what I'm wondering who that Pavam mid-carder is.
I think it's almost like it depends on which era you're talking. Maybe in the that's a good question. Like
Okay,
not
think
even
about it. We can get to it at the end. Think about it.
We'll get to it. Like, yeah. I mean, if one of those random guys, like, who he's been a contender for a title a few times, but that's the maximum he's ever reached in life. Like, yeah. Yeah. And then that opening partnership with Rohit and Gill, right? Like, you felt maybe India will be 3-4 down. Like, they had one whole session. But the way the ball was hitting bat, you felt, there's not much in this pitch. Like, yes, it is up and down. The odd ball stays low. All ball jumps up like Jadeja and Rishabh Pant, the balls that hit them. But they looked so comfortable. Like, and see, when it's over 400, like I've always felt it's fantasy booking if you think that, they will pull it off. So many times we've been there in so many matches, but rarely does it happen. So you just felt, okay, like they're batting and then they've seen off the new ball. But that's when like one of the big moments for me happened on that tour when I saw Rishabh Pant sneak into the nets. So
that is a piece that you guys should all read, which I'll link anyway. But it's a good point to come to that piece. Yeah. So talk about that Rishabh Pant net session.
Yeah, it was funny actually because it was around 5:15 p.m. So I just saw to be a good journalist, as you know, you have to be an eavesdropper, you have to be a stalker, you have to be a peeping Tom. That's those. If you're not any of those, then work on it. So when you go to the restaurant with your wife, you need to listen to everything that is said on every other table, even if your wife says, "Udhar jaake baith na fir." Yeah, just go and sit.
You need to be an intellectual voyeur, basically.
Oh yeah, basically, yeah. And a boring voyeur,
Oh yeah, boring voyeur. Yeah, you don't want to get sleazy and all that. Yeah.
No, not at all. You can't. On a cricket ground, you can't get sleazy even if you want to. So I saw Rishabh Pant sneak out, and then I was like, okay, fine, this I need to see. So I just went to the SCG nets. But by now, everyone is used to seeing me at the nets, so it's not like a big deal seeing me there. And I call this my generation of Indian cricketers. Like, we've seen each other so long. Like, there is like a good relationship between them and me to a great extent. So it's not like I knew they would not be bothered by my presence there. But I did not expect the role I ended up playing. So when I went there, I was standing behind the SCG nets. And I could see Rishabh Pant, 2 throwdown guys, and Nitin Patel, the physio. And one of the throwdown guys is, of course, Nuwan, the Sri Lankan, who amazingly speaks Hindi, which is one of the great, it's another unexpected thing that happened. Because he was speaking to me in Hindi. Kisne mara? I was like, wow.
Oh, really? Nuwan Senvaratne, right?
Yeah. So he's been around the team for a while. So the role I was talking about is because I was standing behind the nets and there was a TV behind me and the match is still going on. So every time there was a cheer or some noise from the crowd, they would stop their net session and look at me. So I had to look at the TV and see what had happened.
Oh, so that was when Rohit and Gill and Pujara and all were batting.
Exactly, yeah. Rohit and Gill are batting. So every time I would see the nets and then I would signal 4 or I'll signal 2 runs. And then I remember Rohit hit a 6. So I had a 6, signal 6 and they were all like, Kisne Rohit bhaiya ne mara? I said, haan, acha hai. And okay, fine. This is all happening while a test match is on, which I found it was just weird.
As a South Indian guy, you should actually reverse it and say Rohit Anna has hit it. Rohit Anna.
Oh, but now everything is turned. No, everyone's a Paji. If Bharat Arun can become a Paji, then...
And forget that. We had N. Jagadishan on our podcast a few months back, and he is referring to Balaji, his own statemate, as Bala Bhai. We are like, day.
It's seriously I know. It's bizarre, right? But the first time
I guess it's the Delhi effect, right? There's so much of Delhi players and all that, yeah.
Correct, yeah. The first time I heard Paji, sorry, I know we are digressing here. 2 years ago when India was in Australia, I remember Ashwin speaking to Bharat and saying, Paji, ball kudunga. I said, hey. What?
It doesn't add up, right? 2 Tamilians calling the other Paji.
Yeah. Oh, it's just anyway,
yeah.
There I am in the nets. And Rishabh Pant is initially he had the bandage on, the strap on, he was batting. He didn't feel too comfortable. Then he took it off. and he tried batting with it. And that's when, like, when he was batting without the strap, like that's when he started mothering himself. And I really wanted to go hug him and end the tour, breach the bubble. I didn't care. I felt so like my motherly instincts kicked in at that point, because he just like was like in a stance, and he's telling himself, "Tujhe kuch nahi hua hai, tujhe kuch nahi hua hai, chal chal, tujhe kuch nahi hua hai." Like, it translates to you're
Talking
fine.
to his arm almost. Yeah.
Yes, talking to his arm almost, like, like how a mother would, like, to a child,
Yeah.
like, ala papa, like it was almost like that. And then he was still, like, middling the ball, and then he's telling Nuwan, you bowl short, you bowl bouncer, don't be scared, don't be scared. And he's telling Nitin Patel, अरे उसको बोलो, डरना नहीं, मुझे नहीं मारेगा, मुझे नहीं लगेगा, बोलो बोलो. And I was like, oh, this is too, like, this is too endearing, like, yeah, this is too cute. And then he started pulling the ball, and that's when Nitin Patel said, are you feeling fine now? He said, yeah, better. And he said, tomorrow, big surprise. Like, they will not know what kya hua hai, big surprise. And there is also like a lesson in here, Sid, for all journalists. Like, when you're watching a net session and whatever. See, there are some, you have to realize that it's their private space at the end of the day. Like, it's their space. So now, like, I know I tweet stuff out and all, but you should be careful with what you tweet out. There are some like conversations like these, especially if we're saying surprise and all. Like, if I just tweet that out, like, it's not fair on them, right? I mean, they're planning something. So that's why even when I tweeted the net session picture out, I just said the status is still that he will bat if required. Even though I knew that he was going to bat and they had this big surprise plan, but that's not my job, right? How can I ruin their plans? Like, and so often you also see, like, I've seen people who watch the nets with me, when a coach comes to speak to a player, that's when you back away. Like, you can't up and take a video and, like, it's like, like when you're speaking to someone like whoever, someone like invading your privacy and take, like, so these are just lessons you pick up, and everybody should respect the fact that just because you have access to the net does not mean you just videotape the whole thing and, like, because it happened during that SCG test. When Justin, during the lunch break, I just walked out to see the nets, and Travis Head was batting. And then I saw Justin Langer walk, like, towards the Travis Head nets. I just walked away. And I remember he started talking to him. As he started talking to him, he just immediately turned around to see if someone was there or not. And he saw I was, like, by then far away. And there was that smile of acknowledgement, like, yeah, that's like, yeah. So I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I just think it's important.
No, it's important. It's important. And it's particularly important in today's media space where the players don't trust the journalists. Players, especially because I can imagine another situation where there is, say a TV journalist who is under pressure for a scoop, standing there, hearing Nitin Patel say this or Rishabh Pant say this, and immediately going on air and saying that, hey, I have got an exclusive. When actually you're crossing an ethical boundary there, because you're not supposed to let out a few things that you see.
Absolutely. And, like, I would not even have written any of this. So the next day, when I saw Rishabh Pant walk out to bat, I was like, oh, good. So if he makes 30 runs, my job is made. I have a story. Like, once the event has happened, then you can write about all that.
Then you have material.
Exactly. Then you have material, and then it has happened. I'm not like I said, I'm not ruining their plans or whatever they have in mind, because if they don't get that space also, then where do they go? Like, if even that gets put out on social media, everything is there is, it's just.
No, but
unfair.
I think even if he had scored 0 or even if he had scored 10, I still think that is a story there, because he's a guy who was injured. He went to the nets. You had this lovely observation of him. But I guess it wouldn't have been a story, because the bigger story would have been India saving the test or whatever.
Whatever, yeah, exactly, yeah, whatever. But it just helped. It just really, like,
yeah, it helped that he scored 97 on that final day. Yeah,
and also it helped that. So my story eventually wasn't Pant. It was starting with Pant and how the entire Indian team kept telling themselves "Tujhe kuch nahi hua" in different languages, in Telugu and Tamil. Like, once Vihari and Ashwin walked out. So it was, it was a fascinating net session. Also told me a lot about this Indian team, which just seems to have that air of fearlessness and just that tika that Ravi Shastri has spoken about for years. Now it's showing, like, the Ravi Shastri approach to coaching, the Ravi Shastri energy that he brings to every net session is beginning to show in each one of them. Like, he gets so much flack for, whatever, he doesn't do anything. What is his role? And all people ask him. If you actually keep your biases aside and watch him in the nets, you'll know what his role is. Like he like not just with the guys who were playing, like the amount of time he spent with Prithvi Shaw after the first test, when they realized that this boy has a long way to go to play test cricket, you could see. But the way they worked with him, like it's just amazing. And like it starts from there. I think the energy, this whole thing of, oh, when you are playing out there, like just removing the fear of failure, I think it comes a lot from Ravi Shastri, and it showed. Like now, which other coach has come and won 2 test series in Australia? So you can't deny him that either. So
yeah, I mean, I was just telling somebody that, had John Wright or Gary Kirsten or Greg Chappell gone to Australia and won 2 series, I mean, they would be like treated on par with demigods. They would be like the greatest thing that happened to Indian cricket ever. So Ravi Shastri, I mean, I'm not saying treat him like a demigod, but give him his due. I mean, or at least find out what he's doing to help the team instead of just. Yeah.
The problem is, it's not just, I understand if people outside the system think along those lines. They'll see some pictures on Twitter and think, daru pita ye. But it's sad when I see journalists honestly put their personal vendettas or like their personal equations with Ravi Shastri or whoever, and then build like narratives around, oh, kuch nahi kar. When you know that's not true, which is kind of not fair. And see, and we've both been journalists. We've covered Indian cricket. Like the best way to deal with it is like not take anything personally. Like, it shouldn't matter what a coach or a captain, honestly, like unless your work is getting affected. This whole thing of, I've heard journalists say, he doesn't like me, he doesn't hate me. Why should it even matter to you? Like they're not your people. Your life is your real life is something else, right? If your friends, your actual friends in life don't like you, then it's a problem. I think it's a division that people should make. Like, because you're there to be an objective journalist. If he does well, you write good stuff about him. If he doesn't do well, you criticize him. That's where it ends. There is no like, oh, because he doesn't like me, I'll show him. That's too much of that I've seen. Like, and I've realized a lot more of it since coming here and like looking at it from the outside. You don't need to be, but I'm not here to like make judgment calls on other journalists, but you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, but on a quick one on Ravi Shastri, I mean, as a player, I mean, he wasn't a long-time captain. He just captained in 1 test for India. But he captained for Bombay. He won Bombay the Ranji Trophy in his final season with a bunch of kids. A team that was pretty much you could equate with the team that won in the Gabba in a Ranji Trophy scale. And from what you hear of people, it seems that one of Ravi Shastri's biggest strengths is to bring the best out of uncapped and unknown people and youngsters and give them the kind of ownership and confidence that is often underestimated in cricket.
Definitely. And I remember Amol Muzumdar, when he retired from first class cricket, he held a press conference at Kharjimkhana, and he spoke about like when people asked him about like people who have been the most influential on his cricket career. He spoke about that that Ranji Trophy final and Ravi Shastri's speech as captain. This is when he stopped playing international cricket. And how inspired it was, like, laced with a lot of cuss words, of course, but like, in true Ravi Shastri fashion. But he literally got each one of them to believe that, they belong there, that they can take decisions for themselves. And you talk about the Gabba test, that's what we've heard, right? That Rishabh Pant was just asked, he was not given any directions to go and win the match or whatever. Just back your instinct, back your belief, back your understanding of the game, and go play your game. And that's really been the hallmark of his coaching regime. And also the fact that I think his ability to take all criticism on himself and never let it go on to like his players, because he said it in like, he's often spoken about it on the sidelines, saying like, you can criticize me for whatever, the way I look, the way I am, but till the time my boys are not affected by it, it doesn't matter to me, because I have a thick skin. It doesn't matter. And that's what we've seen in the last 3-4 years of his coaching. And now it's reflecting in performances where these young kids are just coming in and going out there and like performing like they've been doing it for a long time. Whether it's a Shardul Thakur making a comeback to Test cricket, T. Natarajan, the way he bowled, like despite saying, "Anna, I ball karne ke or like, and the guts that Hanuma Vihari showed, like we were just coming to that. Yeah. I thought, and I really think the Vihari Ashwin partnership is will go down in history as one of the greatest partnerships of all time. Purely, nobody, like you look at the runs, they were some 30 runs and some 200 balls or whatever it is. But this, like, Vihari was putting his career on the line. See, now he hadn't scored too many runs. Yes, the team management felt he was batting really well. But he goes out there, and so many times the team management, the physio came out to ask him, "Are you fine? Are you fine?" And I remember seeing Ravi Shastri and Bharat Sundaresan literally like saying, like, ask him to come off. Like, what is he doing? Like, he could end his career. Like, and also at that point, you didn't know how long it will last, right? Like, maybe we'll send the Jadeja, and which is again amazing, who's sitting there with a broken thumb, and he has already a surgery.
Who again had his career on the line.
Exactly, yeah. It really was like, yeah. It's unimaginable what was happening that last session. And then Vihari knows at that point he's not going to play the next test because his hamstring's gone. He knows that he's not going to play the England test. And you know how Indian cricket is. I mean, Karun Nair made a 100. Where is he now? So the chances at that point are some young kid, it can still happen. Some young kid or whoever gets drafted into the Indian squad for the England test. Why young kid? KL Rahul comes back, makes 200, or Hardik Pandya plays the test, makes 200. Vihari might never play for India again. So when you see a young man like him put his career on the line, that you just have to even if you're a neutral fan, you just say, oh, that's quite something. Yeah. And Ashwin the same. It's funny because throughout the Pujara Pant partnership that day, I kept looking at the dressing room, and Ashwin was standing and moving around. And I really thought it is some kind of superstition, don't move from your seat. But others also it felt like they were not moving. Like Vihari was also just sitting quietly. But then I realized, isn't this guy going to tire himself out by just standing up? Like, why is he just standing up? And then I found out that he tweaked his back the previous day. And then it all came together. I was like, oh, he can't sit down, actually. It's not that he's standing up. And then to see him walk out and, Ashwin's batting, we've all criticized this in the last 2-3 years. It has gone down for sure because we all know how capable he is with the bat. But in this series, from Drummoyne Oval, which is the first warm-up game, he had been working triply hard on his batting, on his technique. He does fuss a little about his technique, but you could see he was really working hard. And it showed, there was glimpses of it here and there, Adelaide, Melbourne. But here, when he walked out to bat, he had one man who couldn't walk or run. He couldn't sit. And they were literally looked like two 70-year-olds somehow, getting to their respective ends. And they just kept batting and batting and batting. And, the Australian frustration was understandable. By now, the India had not just held them by the foot. They held them by the throat. And the frustration kept coming through with Tim Payne or whatever. And yeah, it was one of those things I still can't believe what I saw, that Vihari-Ashwin partnership.
Do you think that, two questions, do you think that the whole Steve Smith thing around coming and trying to take the thing, do you think that was a bit overblown?
Way too overblown. And that's another issue, these days with social media, right? All these clips I'll tell you, during the SCG test or the MCG test, someone tagged me on a clip where Rahane and Siraj are walking back. It feels like Rahane takes something out of his pocket. Basically, he's taking a hand warmer out. But and they're I don't know who this person was who tagged me, and he said, what is happening here or something. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. Imagine that clip could have been blown out of proportion and the whole ball tampering thing could have come into the picture. So you have to be very careful with as a journalist, what you react to on social media. And the Steve Smith thing was that's Steve Smith, man. He does crazy things. I've seen him do some really crazy things in the nets. And even in the middle, when Shubman Gill played that cut shot towards the end of their Melbourne test, you could see him kind of shadow practicing that cut shot, almost an admiration for the shot Gill had played. And he's always leaving balls, or he's he's in his own, lives in his own world. That's why I felt one of the biggest drawbacks for Joe Burns in the series was standing at first slip next to Steve Smith, right? All Joe Burns wanted to do was forget batting, but he could never forget. all day long, this guy is thinking and doing or shadow practicing. So I think it was just blown out of over. And honestly, even if you played cricket at a lower level, you really think you can scratch your guard off. And I umpire at junior level. Even kids at least mark their guard like some 10,000 times. It's not like Rishabh Pant is suddenly going to stand on off stump and have his leg stump knocked out. It was just because it's Steve Smith, it gets blown out of proportion. And even with the whole Tim Payne Ashwin thing, no, Ashwin gave it back to him. Tim Payne, I said it on all radio shows here. Tim Payne just picked the wrong guy on the wrong day to give it to, because Ashwin's always he's the most well-read Indian cricketer. He knows everything. He was always going to give it back without losing his cool, or not in the same fashion. And no surprises that Tim Payne lost his cool. He hit a raw nerve, right, by this whole thing of, it will be your last tour. Now who knows whether Tim Payne will last till the Indian tour, the way this series has gone for him. But and again, stump mic journalism said, I don't know, it was not around when you were a journalist, I'm sure. But yeah, you have, like, in the press box, does it matter? I don't know. I mean, it's being reported a lot, but I don't get this whole thing. People like transcribing stump my conversation and putting it on Twitter. And I mean, these are adults playing out there and being called a dickhead really in Australia. Yeah, everybody calls each other a dickhead. Anyway.
Yeah, and unless it's something that's, out of bounds, unless, people are breaching the sort of, people are entering zones that you shouldn't, like racism and all that. I mean, I don't think this should become the story of the day. I mean, it's like a little tiny anecdote here and there.
Exactly.
But and I understand, in the press box, you're actually sitting and watching the field. And you're sort of focused on so many other things. And then go to the stump mic conversations, transcribe it and all. I mean,
it's become a thing. And it also what happens is, once you put it out on social media, right? Or if you're not at the ground, like, people don't know what happens at the end of the day. Like Tim Payne running up to Ashwin at the end of the day, tapping him on the shoulder, them just like giving each other a high five. And then Tim Payne, later on, he said that, I looked like a fool at the end, right? I gave you shit, but I was the one dropping catches. So, because in most cases, these cricketers forget all that, like, once, or any like professional sports person for that matter, you don't hold that grudge. Like, I know Ashwin tweeted the thing out. That's just Ashwin being Ashwin, like, smartly like tagging Tim Payne so that all the
saying I couldn't come to the Gabba and all that.
Yeah.
I couldn't play at the Gabba, I mean,
yeah, that's why we love Ashwin. Like, he doesn't hold back and he'll make sure to get his point across in some way or the other. But I think they kind of forgave each other at the end of the day. It didn't matter. But if you put the clip out, or if you just start writing about it, then people don't know that it ended on a good note, right? You'll think that it ended there. We're like, whatever, you dickhead. Like, anyway, it's,
I think what could happen, what should ideally happen is that, media organizations need to realize that the game that is going on the field is getting quite different from the game that your television is showing you, because your television is focusing on Virat Kohli 60% of the time in the game. But a journalist there is not looking at Virat Kohli 60% of the time. He's looking at so many other things. Same way, like the stump mic conversations is a TV thing. The commentators are saying stuff which is a TV thing. So you do a very simple thing. You have a guy who's covering the stuff that is coming on TV. And then you let the journalist in the ground give you the actual reality.
I mean, you get a 360-degree view of the whole ground, which is
exactly
the best
right.
Point. Yeah, exactly. That's the privilege of being a journalist. I think it's just, and also broadcasters, I think at some level they'll have to think about the stump mic, like, especially here. I don't see it happen so much in India, where they, when the spinner is bowling, they have like the whole over where they're like, we're going to listen in. But it's a risk. Like, I'll give you an example. Last year when Pakistan were playing a T20, Wahab Riaz had the mic. He was mic'd up. And they said, we are listening in. And later, and like he's speaking in Urdu. And they're talking about bowling changes. And like, they're talking about main idhar dalunga, udhar dalunga. Which is information that should not be relayed outside. And then later on, I asked one of the Fox producers, I said, at that point, when you had Wahab Riaz mic'd up and you let people listen in, was there anyone in the box who knew Urdu or Hindi? They're like, no. So I was like, what do you mean no? Like, he could have said whatever, right? Like, it's amazing. Like, but I guess, especially in Australia with Fox and Channel 7, there's so much competition right now to, like, again, which doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, where you have two broadcasters trying to one-up each other. So it's just become a norm here, like, to have the stump mic on. And like someone said, Tim Payne, I think Gideon Haigh said, you live by stump mic, you die by stump mic. So, It's
The second question is that, the second question I had is now, with the whole Indian team's relationship with the media, which is quite frosty at most times, and, players not even entertaining too many interviews or anything like that. And secondly, with quite a number of, with the social media becoming such a big deal, Ashwin putting out all these videos and, Rohit Sharma interviewing some cricketers and all that. But there are some cricketers, like a Pujara or a Vihari or something, who we don't get to know much about, either because, their presence is not that big on social media, and, they play only one format. And so they are there on your screen only not that often. So what are your, tell us a bit about your observations of Vihari. You did write in that Siraj piece that, Vihari has taken it upon himself to also mentor Siraj in a way, because they both have that Hyderabad connection and all that. So tell us about Vihari, because he seems like a very interesting character to me, who is not that much, known as much as he should.
Yeah, I think he is very quiet. Like what you see on the field is a lot of how he is. Like, he doesn't talk much, even during net sessions, or, he'll have that one smile on his face, but he looks the same regardless of what's happening. I'll give you an example. So Gav and I were trying to judge after the MCG test when they had one net with Rohit Sharma also in there, because they hung around in Melbourne for a few days. And we were trying to judge, whose shoulders are down, who might play, who might not play. You're always trying to look at body language, right?
Yeah.
So you looked at Vihari, and both Gavin and I said, maybe I think he's not going to play. Look at him. He's not talking to anyone. He just seems very quiet. And then we go to the SCG, for 2 days later. He looked the same. He was but he was the only one who looked the same. I don't remember who we thought would play. Mayank we thought would play. Even Mayank, but Mayank looked down, unlike the other day. So we were like, wait, we can't be stoop, not poker face. There is no expression, there's no emotion, and that's really how he is, and that's what the Indian team like about him. He's got a very, very tough interior that we saw during the SCG test, but just generally, even on the field, you could see that when Matthew Wade kept sweeping and kept hitting him on the shin and on the knee, he just didn't flinch. He's one thing you realize with Vihari, he's deceptively strong. He's one of the more muscular Indians in this squad. And and I remember interviewing his mother a few years ago, and which is a very sweet interview, because I've never heard another cricketer's mother say that when he plays an on drive very early in his innings, I know it's going to be his day, which I thought was fascinating. Yeah, and because she's seen a lot of him, right? His father once watched Ambati Rayudu bat when Ambati Rayudu was a junior cricketer, and he said, "I want you to bat like him." That's how
things turned out so differently.
Look where they are now. So and I think his mother used to own a clothing shop, one of those mom and pop clothing stores. And I remember her telling me, and even him telling me in an interview, when he wouldn't play cricket, he would go and help her and her sister run the shop. Of course, now I'm sure they've moved on from that. And he is actually the proper South Indian middle class boy. Just looking at him on the field, the Australians stopped sledging him, because they realize, more than even Pujara, at least Pujara will smile. This guy has no expression. There's no point going after him. And it's that. And from what I've heard from the team management as well, they always talk about him being that a leader, where he is a leader by example. That toughness, that quiet, that he has that air of nothing will bother him. He's so in his own zone that nothing bothers him. But also, when he spoke about Siraj, I thought Vihari played a huge role even on the field. Siraj would go to Vihari. He was his first ever captain, many years ago. And he's been captaining from a very young age as well, Vihari. 2021, he was captain. So often, if things weren't going right, Siraj, the first man he went to was Vihari. And Vihari would put an arm around him and say stuff. So I think there is a lot to admire about this youngish man. Now he's been around for 2, 3, 4 years. And I think we won't get to hear much about him. I know now he's gone and given a lot of interviews, but he's even in interviews, he's so modest. Pujara is just modesty dripping. He's is boingifying in modesty.
Immersed in modesty.
He is immersed in modesty. But Vihari is not to that extent, but because you don't know what to make of him.
But there's a little quirky humor there, because somebody posted a nice clip from Melbourne where, Vihari was feeling in the boundary and there were some guys speaking Telugu in the stands, and they said, in Telugu, they were telling him, we want a wicket. And he turns around and tells them back in Telugu, if a wicket goes, the match will be over. Why do you want a wicket? So saying that, don't you want to watch more? So, exactly. And then there's also that, the Babul Supriyo's famous tweet where he said that he did. Exactly. And then he replied to that and he said, that Babul Supriyo had said Hanuma Bihari. And he replied to that and said Hanuma Vihari.
I think that was a tweet of the tour. Yeah, that was a tweet of the tour. But that's what I think I really admire about him. He doesn't say much. When he does, it makes sense. He's one of those characters. And he, see, from our point of view, when we saw him bat in the first two tests, he didn't make too many runs, got out playing like a sweep, hit his glove, Nathan Lyon at the wrong time after that partnership with Rahane. But when I spoke to the team management, they were like, what do you mean he's we haven't even imagined him not playing, because he is batting beautifully. So at times you also realize, no, the cricket that we see and the cricket that is watched from the dressing room is not always the same. So I think and he will come back. I think whenever he does recover, he'll be right back in. There is this sense that he could. I don't see him captaining India, but maybe if things if he had come into the Indian team slightly earlier, who knows? Maybe someday he might have gone on to captain.
Yeah, and he gives you also that extra option of, he did open in the last, he has opened before also. So he does give you multiple dimensions. I think he even bowls, right? He bowls a bit of spin as well.
He bowled a lot last time, off spin, yeah.
Okay, so you get done with Sydney and then you continue to stay in Sydney, I think, when the team goes to Brisbane, right? Yeah. But then after Sydney, Bumrah gets injured. The next guy falls. And then basically, you're going to Brisbane, which Australia insists, pretty much insisted they want to play in Brisbane because that is their Gabbatoir, and where they haven't lost since 1763 or something like that. And, something as absurd as that, 1988. But, and then, so talk about that. So I guess you would have watched that whole game from an apartment on just a TV and...
Oh, no. Yeah. So I was still part of the SEN commentary panel. So I was going to the studio every day. So it was just me, Brad Haddon, and the scholar called Matt White. So we were the Sydney team. So it was just the three of us. So it was perfect. I had my own massive TV, the size of a wall, the whole wall. It covered the whole wall, lovely couch. And our stints would, after the tea break, till the last day, we didn't have stints. The Melbourne and Brisbane studios would take over. So everybody would leave. And this is also the trust factor here in Australia, right? 3 nights, they just, the other people who work there, they said, oh, this is how you lock up, mate. And they all left. So I had the whole Sydney SEN office to myself.
Oh, wow.
I was the one locking in, or locking the place up before leaving. So it was good fun. It was different doing commentary off TV because there's a lag. It's happened, what you're always 10 seconds late. So it was strange doing it off TV when you don't get that 360-degree view. Writing is we all covered games off TV, but especially commentary is very difficult. Radio commentary is even more difficult when you're doing it off TV, where you're expected to describe the whole thing, but you're just reacting to what you see on TV. So which nobody can see if they're listening to radio. So it was a strange experience, but not going to Brisbane, like I said, I had to take a call on Sydney or Brisbane because I knew we couldn't, only the team was allowed to go to Brisbane. And even in Brisbane, as you know, they were not allowed to leave the ground. And that's pretty much how they knew it was going to happen. So the whole thing was, I saw Bumrah struggling at the SCG. He was holding his abdomen, and even again, it might not be, it might be maybe a forgotten chapter in this whole mega series win. But the fact that Bumrah bowled with that abdominal strain, because I saw the physio run out twice to check on Bumrah and to ask him to literally come off. They said, why are you taking this chance? But Bumrah kept kind of waving them off. At one point, he was at fine leg in the middle of a spell when the coaches sent Nitin Patel all the way to fine leg to just check on him. And Bumrah wanted nothing of it. He just wanted to bowl. And this is on in the Australian second innings, the declaration innings, where he could easily have said, no, anyway, what's the point? It doesn't make a difference to the innings if I bowl or not. But he kept running in, and they were, to the extent they were scared that it could be a tear. And that's one of the reasons why the news first broke out that he'll miss the Brisbane test. And at that point, you're thinking, well, okay, fine. So Bumrah's also gone. So, and I remember being on some radio channel, and I was trying to explain to them, this is like Australia going in with Mark Steketee, Sean Abbott, and Jackson
Your favorite,
Bird.
Michael Neser.
No, but Michael Neser is in the top 5, so even he would not have played.
Okay.
Top 3. So, did you see the catch he took yesterday? Yeah. So, this is like literally Australia going with their 6th, 7th, 8th option. And then Ashwin gets injured. No Jadeja. So it's like playing with. I don't even know. I asked them, so who would be the spinner here? Because it can't be Swepson either, because he's your second spinner. So, I don't know, Lloyd Pope. I have no idea who that. There are no other spinners really of note here. John Holland, maybe they would have gone back to his only option, I can think of. So, imagine playing a test match with that bowling attack. And T. Natarajan, I kept joking about it. So, in Adelaide, after one net session, I remember, Ravi Shastri was walking off, and I said, hey, Natarajan's bowling really well. They was for test debut, and we both laughed, ha 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 ha. Little did I know that. I don't think anybody knew at that point that this will become a reality. Yeah. So, and then
both Natarajan and Washington Sundar were both there to help the team in the nets, pretty much, right? Washington Sundar was there and Shardul Thakur. Washington Sundar was there to imitate Lyon. To give the team practice against Lyon, and the other two guys were just there to be just part of the team and just for insurance, pretty much.
Exactly. Just to literally bowl in the nets, because India were offered net bowlers, but they said no, we prefer our own reserves, because they weren't sure whether they'll get net bowlers or not. So by the time they reached, they were happy to have some random net bowler come and bowl to them. So these guys would bowl for hours. Shardul Thakur would bowl for 2.5 hours, and Washington Sundar half the time wasn't even bowling. He would just finish his action so that the ball lands, and then Sridhar or someone would stand behind hey, innu body poda adula, innu poda, because they wanted the ball to jump off the surface. Zip was needed. So half the time, and he wasn't carrying his pads, white pads. Shardul Thakur would bat in Chennai Super Kings gloves whenever he got a chance to bat, because Shardul Thakur was as amazing, as his story is as crazy as T. Natarajan, because Shardul Thakur was part of the one-day squad, and that's it. He wasn't part of the T20 squad. He gets added to the T20 squad because somebody got injured, one of the 500 people who got injured on this tour. Then he gets added to the test squad when Shami gets injured. And he plays all formats. Natarajan is another step below him, where he wasn't part of any squad. He kept getting added to one squad after the other, and he played. Washington Sundar the same. He was part of only the T20 squad, and he was we expected Natarajan and Shardul Thakur to stay. Washington Sundar was a surprise for Gav and I. We were
I didn't even know he was there.
A lot of people didn't know. So he would only be there. He hardly even got a bat, and incidentally, the only time he batted was during the SCG test, during lunch. This is before the injuries and all. So the first time I was you're batting is when I thought, first time, I'm seeing him bat, poor guy. Maybe they felt bad for him, you never get to bat, come, we'll take you there, and and that's really how crazy this whole thing is. The way India formed that playing 11 in the last test. And I was in the SCN studio in the morning because I had to do a pre-match stint. And both Brad Haddon and I are just looking at the TV, and he's oh, that's Bumrah. I said, okay. And I remember in the morning, Crash Craddock, the great Crash Craddock, he's on camera, he's speaking to the Fox guys. So I'm looking at it, but I'm just looking at the TV, seeing who's walking behind him. And first I saw Bumrah in a jumper. I was no chance. And Brad Haddon's no, wait, mate, let's look at his shoes. Let's see what shoes he's wearing. And then on TV, we're trying to see whose shoe, what shoe, and all that. And then they showed Ravi Shastri having 2 caps. So we were okay, 2 debutants. So Natarajan, and has to be Natarajan and Sundar. There's nobody else left.
Yeah, and then Kuldeep cannot be a debutant anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Shardul Thakur has played one test.
10 balls. He has played 10 balls before.
My last test I covered for the Express was Shardul Thakur's, who people thought first and last test. Yeah. So then you see Shardul Thakur's also marking his run. Because at that point, when Ashwin gave Sundar the cap, I was kind of convinced that Ashwin might be playing, like, because I think the night before as well, nobody was sure, like, because it's with a tweaked back and all, maybe they were waiting for the morning of the test to decide how he's feeling. So even at that point, when Ashwin handed him the cap, I was like, maybe Ashwin's still playing. So I said, two off spinners, not bad. Then I see Shardul Thakur also marking them up, and I'm like, wait. So Ashwin doesn't want to play. This is not even a fantasy 11. I don't even know what to call it, because who will like pick that as a bowling attack, right? From Washington Sundar to Thakur to then 4 test matches between 5 bowlers, and Natarajan is actually playing. It was.
What is your theory of why they went with Washington Sundar ahead of Kuldeep? Was it the batting? Was it the fact that he was also like was that the main reason?
I think batting and like what you were just about to say, the control he brings with the ball.
Yeah.
See, with Washington Sundar, like in the nets, like, innum konja zor se podu, he's kind of in the Jadeja mode, like not quite Jaddo idhar dal, Jaddo bahar dal, Jaddo aage dal, not
Jaddo wahan se bhi dal sakte hai.
Wahan se bhi dal sakte hai. Like, not to that level, but he is like a control bowler, right? So they literally wanted, but it was the batting that got him the gig. But it is also the bowling to an extent, and we saw him do that, right? He's not too flash. He's not going to bowl too many bad balls, because you see his record in T20 cricket, and which is what India wanted. They wanted to build that pressure, and he was a perfect bowler. Yes, he hadn't played for a long time. Like his sister said, no, but he's been playing a lot of first division cricket, she told me. So I thought it was very cute. Like,
that whole story is very cute. You should read it. I'll link that about Washington Sundar, his family, his sister, how his dad had predicted. His dad is probably the only person in the whole world who had predicted that Washington Sundar will play a test in this series. Somehow, I guess some divine voice had told him that or something. So.
Seriously, it was weird. Like, when she said, I said, wait, how did he know? Did he know something we don't know? Was my first question. He's like, no, wow. I don't know where Appa thought of it. Like, So, and I think that had a lot to do with. I felt bad for Kuldeep Yadav, but maybe if Jadeja was fit, they could have stuck with Kuldeep Yadav. But once you picked Washington Sundar, you had to pick 4 fast bowlers. You couldn't have 2 spinners on that pitch.
No, and also if you're going with, the plan that the Indian team came in with this series with, the cut off the offside, cramp the players, restrict the runs, Washington Sundar was the best, because Kuldeep can bowl you the great ball, but he can also bowl you 2 bad balls in the over.
Exactly. And they've always been slightly wary of playing him as the lead spinner. And especially at this stage of a series, at the Gabba, where you don't know whether the ball's going to turn or it can. I mean, Shane Warne always says where it seems
it seems it spins.
Yeah, that's his favorite line. But you don't know. And I think, but at the 90% of what went in Washington's favor was, I think, this batting. And we saw what he did with the bat. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that was, so you go to the Gabba, you have Washington Sundar, Shardul Thakur, and this Natarajan, and a team that. And then, you lose the toss. I mean, exactly. Of course. When everything is going wrong, why not one more thing go wrong also? No, big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that bowling effort on day one, you have to give it to them, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, right? Things going wrong, it will go wrong. It really felt like, and this was my last copy of this tour, it felt like, how sports movies are made in India. Like, where they will like accentuate the underdog story to such an extent where it'll be like, if it's a box, like Mary Kom, the movie. Like, I remember seeing some scenes where, this is a real life story. The lady still exists. She's still boxing. But in the movie, they show that. I remember one scene where her kid is in hospital and fighting for her life, which is a real story, and she's fighting someone, and then they show her fighting this lady. And I was watching it with Mihir Vasavda, who's done so many Olympics, and he's covered so much of non-cricket sports at the highest level. And they show some random Russian girl or someone who's boxing, who doesn't look like a boxer. And there's one scene I'll never forget where, of course, it's like a split screen thing, like where the kid is really serious. And at that point, Mary Kom gets punched and she hits the floor. And then they show this boxing, her opponent comes stand over her and say, "Go home, mama." And I was like, that doesn't happen in sport. Like, why are you showing all this? It's like,
But it does happen. It does happen in this tour to Australia, India's tour to Australia.
But everything suddenly in this tour, it was like someone like writing a sports movie script in India. Like, you will lose your players, you will be abused, there'll be like villain, like,
you will lose all your money, you will lose all your dignity, you will lose everything that you have, but then you will come and fight back.
Exactly. It happened in real life. It happened in reality. That's exactly what it was. Like you said, everything was going against them, like losing the toss.
And even on the day one, it was 274 for 5, which, okay, fair enough. Manas got that 100 and all that. But even then, for me looking, 274 for 5, that bowling attack is a big success, man. Like, it could have been 380 for 2 or something.
Exactly, yeah. And you felt with that bowling attack, this is David Warner's day. I mean, has to be David Warner's day. Nobody's talking about him. He's going to come and make that 100 of 80 balls and like everybody's Davies back is what I thought would happen. But he gets out early, and Manas could easily have been out. Like, they could have been 4 for 95. Or sorry, I'm 2.5 years here. I've started saying it wrong. 95 for 4. Yeah. They could have
it's okay. It's 4 for 95. You're still there, so it's fine.
So I'm here, 4 for 95. And when Cam Green's catch was dropped by Shardul Thakur, just before the second new ball, if that catch had been taken, they might have been bowled out for 270 or so. It was...
Yeah.
So, I think, and also what was happening here during the test match was everyone here was always like 2 steps ahead, like because weather is going to come and all. The inevitability around the Australian win was so high that all they kept talking about was what will Australia declare on in the second innings. Whereas, wait, there's still first innings. India have to bat, and it was funny, like and it went through even on day 2 when India came back and bowled them out again. Australia not being able to lay the knockout punch. Because the way Payne and Green started that morning, you thought, okay, 450 they'll make. Like, they looked at least 420 they'll make. But India just kept fighting back, kept taking wickets. Shardul Thakur bowled, kept running in like he does in the nets. And for Natarajan, Shardul Thakur and Washington Sundar to share 3 wickets each. And the senior bowler Siraj taking a step back in his third test was like... I don't know what to say about it. Like, it was just crazy. And
I mean, bowled out for 369 after being 200 for 3. That is with this attack. I mean, that is like stuff of Govinda movies, man.
It is, yeah. I mean, I don't know what script they were following anymore. Like, yeah, someone was smoking something somewhere. Whoever wrote the script, like, yeah, and not the good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so 369, okay, fine. 369 is still like 369. You have runs on the board. That's what matters. And then India come to bat. And, it's like it's a mix and match kind of an innings. It's like, okay, things are going well, and then you lose a wicket. Things are going well, you lose a wicket. And then you have the moment where basically Govinda stops a plane with his teeth, which is genuinely, which is Washington Sundar and Shardul Thakur's partnership. I mean, that for me, at that time, the series just lost all sense of reality for me. I'm like, okay, we are now watching some other dimensional event going on.
Yeah, I see. That's why I keep saying I don't think we'll see anything like this ever again. And that's why I'm in a way glad 36 all out happened. I'm glad Virat Kohli was not there, because see, if the same thing could have happened with Virat Kohli as well, right? But the focus would have been like on Virat, even whether he scored runs or not. Or, it wouldn't be on these random heroes.
On Shami, it would have been on Bumrah, on Shami, on all that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it would actually, the narrative would have been, oh, look, we've come and beaten you with Smith and Warner also. Now, we were talking more about, wo chodo unke saath kaun hai, hamare paas kaun hai dekho. Like, yeah.
We have come and beaten you with Smith and Warner and us with nobody.
Nobody, yeah. Us with like really like one ragtag bunch of like guys who like, see, Natarajan will never play a test match again, right? That was it. That he was destined to play this one test match and go back. He's already
in fact 3-4 guys from this test match may never play a test match again.
Like
Shardul may or not, yeah.
May not, yeah. I mean, it's this. They will be remembered for this, yeah, right. And and at 186 for 6, like the top end, Rohit Sharma shot. So again, you felt now at least they're going to give up, and that was the feeling in the commentary box. Brad Haddon was like, I think this is too much. I mean, they've had too much. Even they've already won the series. It doesn't matter even if they lose here, like and that's where I thought Australia made a big mistake. because India 6 wickets down, and these two start batting very normally. They're in no strife at all. And all they kept talking about was, we need to take 14 wickets, we need to take 14 wickets, we need to take 14 wickets, we need to... I remember when the lead was still 170, 180. But I wonder, how they're going to focus on... They have to take 14 wickets. They have to take... The weather's coming. Day, this partnership has to end. No. And before you knew it, they brought the, like Ravi Shastri would say, the psychological advantage, India had got, because the lead was in double figures. And then it started creeping. Then that's when the Australians kind of woke up and said, wait, we're watching something we didn't expect. And India are actually getting close to the Australian target. Forget about 14 wickets. Who will get this 1 wicket? I mean, had to be Pat Cummins, who's just on beast. Who will keep, who's like a machine, I think. When he came back from his injuries, they installed some chip in his body. Now he was he cannot stop bowling at full tilt.
Yeah, he's like a combination of McGrath and Mackay Nithini. Nithini used to just keep bowling, right? I mean, exactly, he can bowl all day, and McGrath has the accuracy. So Nithini and McGrath combined is Pat Cummins.
Pat Cummins, yeah. And into two almost, because of...
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So he, and then you were like, oh, wait. And I kept saying, wait, India could win this actually, because Australia don't stay in the present. I remember some show I was saying, they can learn from India. India are actually being in the present. They're okay, abhi kya hai hamare paas? We have nobody. Whoever is left, Bharat can't come to Brisbane, so we'll just play the 5 of you. Or of course, so, and okay, where 186 was 6. What can Shardul Thakur and Washington Sundar do? We'll bat and see what happens. But Australia were always what will they declare on day? But you're still not finished.
Yeah, Australia were always in the future, while India were in the present. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then but still you felt okay. So then they bowl them out. Okay,
finally they get the lead.
Finally they get the lead. It's not too much. I actually predicted. I said they might go hard at India, and they might lose wickets and panic, because that's how the series was going, right, on day 4. And then
that's how it happened in, as memory serves, in Adelaide, exact lead of 33, and Australia went at it and collapsed and all that. Yeah.
Exactly. And then and they kept saying, and they Australians, are obsessed with the weather radar. It's coming, green is coming, blue is coming, it's reached the south coast, it's 100 kilometers away.
Actually, defeat is coming. That is the only thing coming.
That is the only thing coming, yeah. So the rain never came. But that David Warner-Marcus Harris partnership was again one of those few moments where they looked like Australia of the old. You're okay, so Warner's playing well, 82 without loss. Yes, the lead is now
this is this famous play, right? That waiting for Godot. Basically, you're just waiting for Australia of the old throughout, but Australia of the old is not coming at all.
Not coming at all. Yeah, exactly. So the new India is just surprising you at every step, and that partnership 82, and then Harris gets out, and then so Warner gets out, and you're oh, wait, that's I thought that would be the Warner day.
And Warner gets out LBW to an arm ball from Washington Sundar, which is a beautiful ball.
Outstanding ball, yeah. So Washington Sundar easily could have had Smith in both innings and Warner. I mean, he still had Smith and Warner. On debut, not having bowled in a first-class match and only bowled in a first division match, as her sister said, for 4 years almost. So, and then that's where, again, India showed that they were not out of the game at any point. Even though Australia felt that they controlled the game, if you think about it now in hindsight, India controlled the game at every step, except that at 6 for 186, of course, things were out of their control. But once that Shardul Thakur Sundar partnership happened, India actually controlled the game, because Australia were playing for a declaration, but they were not allowed to score at more than 3 and over. If Sydney was 3.5, here it was 3.1, I think, where they kept trying to break free, but they just couldn't. Manas came and tried to play a shot. He got out. Siraj bowled a great spell again. Steve Smith tried to break free. Then he gets out. Matthew Wade, maybe playing his last test.
Matthew Wade is that down the leg side, right? Yeah, I mean, Matthew Wade got out to the most freaky ways throughout this series. I mean, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Either he threw his wicket away or randomly he kept getting out. And then Cam Green, walks out to bat, and he just can't like hit the ball of the square, and you're like, what are they doing here? And of course the Australian commentary panel, like, Shane Warne and all, like, declare now, and even Brad Haddon was, I was saying, I think they should dangle the carrot to India, maybe declare at 2:30, he said. And I told him, the way the series is going, I'm going to use a very cheesy line on radio commentary now. I'm going to say, if Australia dangle the carrot, they will take carrot and make carrot halwa out of it. Is what like India will do.
which is what pretty much happened in the end. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Then now when I think back to him saying 2:30 will be a good, they will dangle
2:30. That's like audacious, man.
It is. Yeah, they might have won by lunch or something on the
Yeah, I mean, Gill might have won it on his own bat.
Exactly. Yeah. It's amazing. Like, that's the whole of Australia throughout the series just kept waiting for India to just fall down. Yeah,
it's basically almost like they were victims of their own fantasy, of their own hype, because exactly. You hype up the Gabatoir to such a degree that the thought of Australia losing at the Gabba never enters your head. So that's why even 2:30 is like, you think, okay, you'll win.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even the whole culture thing as well, right? I think they're realizing it now. When you, with the whole Tim Payne, Ashwin thing, him coming and apologizing, like when you set the bar so high for yourself in terms of behavior and all that, and you make a documentary which is kind of based around this changing face of Australia, you're just setting yourself up to fail in many ways, right? Like, how long in the heat of the battle, how can you like always match those standards that like nobody else has set for you? You just decided like, no, we'll be like this. And it was similar with the Gabatoir. You could see from the beginning that they were so tense. They were desperate to win this game. And the thought that this Indian team could even win never entered their head. It was almost about India's survival. But now when you look at or even like around midway through the 5th day's play, it never looked like India were batting for survival. It almost felt like Australia were the ones like hoping for something to happen. Like the fact that they nicked India out for 36 all out, but still by the 22nd over here, they started bouncing Pujara. They were just like shooting themselves on the foot. They were so desperate to have that one easy session, like that one session where they get 6-7 wickets and then you don't have to, then it goes back to just like taking those 2-3 wickets in the end and finishing it off. India just did not let them have it throughout the series.
After that 36 all out, they never got a session which they dominated to such a degree. Yeah. I mean, they did dominate few sessions, but they never got away, No,
never. Like
our old exactly. And to come to think of it, had 36 all out not happened, because it was a freak anyway, India might have even possibly won that test.
They were in front, like 53 runs ahead. They easily could have been 120 runs ahead if Tim Payne had been caught at least once. Australia were 111 for 7, at one point, or 111 for 8. So India, it's a great win, but India dominated this series. Like, they really did dominate the series.
In fact, Shane Warne said on air, he said a very interesting thing, which even I found a little counterintuitive. He said, he said this in the middle of the Brisbane test. He said India have been the better team in the series. And a couple of his co-commentators said, no, I don't think so. In Sydney, they struggled for a draw. They lost in Adelaide. But if you actually take session by session, India probably won more sessions than Australia.
Easily. Yeah. I mean, they had more heroes than Australia for sure. I mean, look at the number of people in the Indian team who enhanced their reputations. And look at the number of guys in the Australian team who either plateaued out or like lost some steam. Like Stark and Lyon had horrible series. Like Wade is like maybe batted himself out of a test spot forever. Cam Green, he was okay. I mean, the way the hype around Cam Green, like
if Cam Green, if the only way Cam Green could have held up the reputation if he had scored 800s throughout the series. Otherwise, anything was a letdown. That's how he was hyped.
Exactly. Yeah, and taken 50 wickets. Yeah.
At least 50 wickets. Yeah.
At least 50. Yeah. Poor guy didn't even get one. You could see that Australia had been outplanned. They were just waiting for something to happen, that the way that whole 36 all out, if not 36 all out, but something like where they'll just stick to their plans and India will finally give up and start edging balls. But they just did not do that. And the fact that Australia could not find ways to overcome that means that they'd been outplanned and they never had a plan B. Right? Their plan was just Just keep bowling there, set them up, and they'll get out, bowl maidens and all that. But this Indian team, the way it's such a freaky batting lineup, right? Gill will play with like absolute freedom. Rohit is Rohit. Like, if he sees a bad ball, he'll put it away. And then you have Pujara, like, who will just like play Pujara, like, do a Pujara. And
Pujara, who on the last day decided that Pat Cummins is getting me out with beauties every innings. So now I will basically let the ball hit my body.
Exactly. Whatever happens, he walked onto a cricket ground, but thinking that he's in a boxing ring, where I'll just And for me, the funniest moment of the series was like, while he's getting pounded by balls, every part of his body is hurt. One cute floaty butterfly flies past him, and he's like, oh no, I need to be I'm distracted.
Quite a few people have I think Gideon A even wrote the butterfly effect as the headline to his piece.
It was fascinating, like the way and with Pujara and with the batting lineup India had, they could play two games. With Pujara, they were drawing the game at one end. With everyone else, they were winning or at least playing for a win at the other end.
But you think with Pujara they were drawing? I think even Pujara, because the way he was playing Stark and Lyon, I thought sometimes he was also going for the win.
In the second half, I think in the first half, the way he started, he was basically he was the security. He was like the bruised and battered security. But at his end, if he could bat the whole day, India knew they could bat the day out. While at the other end, I think the whole thing changed when Rahane walked out. I felt, yes, there were with Stark, he was so gone by then. Even anybody would have come and there was nothing in his deliveries, right? The way Shubman Gill played him, yes, he killed him, he tamed the bully. But even Pujara was able to hit him over point and all, because the ball had it was sitting up to be hit.
He had an off day. He was probably injured as well. He had a really off day.
Yeah. And I think the arrival of Rahane is when Pujara changed. Did you ever imagine before this test match started that Ajinkya Rahane and Cheteshwar Pujara will have an all-run 4? I never did that. It's one of those other unexpected things that happened, things that you never thought would happen. And I think that's when you suddenly got this feeling that, okay, India are really going for it. As when Pujara started jumping out and flicking Lyon and trying to, force the issue, the running between the wickets changed. I think Rahane's arrival is when I at least felt that they're definitely going for the win. I mean, draw is out of question now. They're just going
even when Gill was going after Stark with those pull shots and fielders out there, but he's still going for it. I thought, I buy that Ravi Shastri's statement where he said that play your game and then we'll see at some point. And maybe when Rahane came in is pretty much where they said, okay, we are still in this touching distance, so why not? Why not try?
Exactly. Why not try? Yeah. And I think when Rahane hit Lyon for that six. Generally he was batting. I think that was another one of those key moments, the 6 of Lyon, because Lyon, I thought the way he started was the best he had bowled all summer. And I think for best he had bowled in the last 6 test matches against India since Perth, where he's taken only 13 wickets now, where he started bowling the right lines, and Shane Warne was going after him on commentary, but at least he started bowling the right lines. He was getting that bite of the pitch, and even with Pujara, he troubled him a lot in the first 3-4 overs, and he didn't have much of an impact against Gill, but it looked like it could be a Lyon day at that point.
He finally got Gill, but and until then, Gill was easy against. He was fine against.
Exactly. So you thought maybe it's finally the Lyon days here, just based on the fact that he was getting the ball was leaving his hand nicely. He wasn't just bowling flat, that his face didn't bring he didn't have that frown on his face, which Nathan Lyon does if things aren't going his way. But India just kept hanging in there. And after a point, but what Pujara did was impact the Australian fast bowlers when they came back with the second new ball. They were gone. They were flat. And Pat Cummins, we said, he can do it. Even today now, if you call him and say, come bowl 50 overs, he'll come and do that. But Hazelwood, the way he kept staring at the pitch, almost now,
why isn't it breaking?
Exactly. The number of times the camera would zoom onto his face and he's looking down at the pitch, looking at, kya ho raha hai? Why? What about the cracks? And I think that was another thing. Like they built up the pitch also to be like some more cracks, this crack, that crack. Oh, every time the ball would hit a crack, Tim Payne would start laughing behind the stumps and they're like, woo, and but it hardly did anything, right? There were 3 or 4 balls which misbehaved. Yes, a few balls that Pujara, but mostly it was pretty.
So everything that they expected to happen didn't happen. The Gabba pitch should crack. Why isn't it cracking?
Yeah, and there are cracks everywhere that you can see. Like, there's looking at the pitch from that spider cam. They're looking at it from like stump cam. You can see all the cracks. They look like, I said, it looked like the first time you come to Australia and you think, enakana sunscreen and all, I don't want. And then your skin actually starts cracking that. That's what it looked like, the Gabba pitch. But
no, and to be fair, Cummins was hitting those cracks as well. I mean, the balls that Pujara took on his body were pretty much hitting those cracks, and they were going and hitting him. Yeah,
exactly. And Cummins was still bowling at 100%. Like Hazelwood was down to like 40-50% because Pujara had just eaten him up. Like, he just feasted on him little by little by little. And by the end of the day, and the after effects of the SCG match also started showing. But these guys had just bowled so many overs. And the fact that Stark had no impact, the fact that Lyon was not having much of an impact, and the fact that Tim Payne, even though they talked up Cam Green on day 4 saying he could be the difference maker, he didn't bowl him. Like he bowled him just for 3 overs. So, and he didn't even go to Manas, who I think is a very underrated bowler. So, yeah.
But he did. Actually, that was another interesting thing because Manas came on to bowl just before the new ball. Yeah. And Pujara went after him like, how dare you come on to bowl kind of stuff. He just kept trying to hit him. And that is another interesting plot because, we had an earlier podcast where Mahesh mentioned that had Manas actually bowled okay and batsman not gone after him, then maybe the new ball could have been delayed a bit to give the bowlers some more rest. But Pujara was not going to allow that.
Oh, no. And I remember like last time Manas played a test against India, last tour, Pujara hit him for 3 fours and poor guys made him do a press conference that day. I've never seen do a press conference on a day he's bowled 1 over where he's gone for 12 runs. Yeah.
But Manas, the crucial thing about Manas is Manas had more wickets than the entire Indian bowling attack in this test.
Oh, yes, of course. You can't deny that. Yeah. Like whichever way you look at it, it's just I can't believe that happened. Like it will never happen again. Yeah.
So finally, of course Pujara gets out to Cummins. Who else? Yeah. I mean, it has to be Cummins. He gets his wicket, and then so then Pant is there. Pant is set. But India's batting after that is like Mayank is there, but Mayank is traditionally an opener, and Mayank is not in and out. And then after that you have this. So I guess at that time, again, Australia were like, okay, it's done now. Like, Pujara's out. Now we have to get through them.
Exactly. I mean, like, it's not going to happen again. Like, this lower order is not going to stand. Not on this cracking Gabatoa pitch, like, where... And our bowlers have, like, that he was the only obstacle. Rishabh Pant's going to get out at any point. And, like, I thought the way Pant played Lyon just showed you like how special a cricketer he is. Like for me, yes, that net session at the SCG was my first sign of like, I really, my respect for Rishabh Pant really grew like through the roof. But like the way he played Lyon, where it was almost like it looked like, okay, Lyon was trying to tempt him outside off. So yeah, 1 ball he came out and jumped. And it was, I don't think it was a stumping opportunity. He just like spun well past Tim Payne. But at some level, it was Pant who was tempting Lyon. It was like, okay, you come closer to me. If you bowl outside off stump, I'm not going to do anything with it. At times, he was just like walking away. He wasn't even leaving the ball, right? And then eventually, Nathan Lyon, because Australia were the ones who needed wickets. It's not like India could have gotten away with a draw. So that's the advantage that India had going into that game and Australia's desperation. So I didn't know what Lyon was trying to do there. Like, trying to buy the wicket after the 3rd over, he realized Pant is not going to come after him. Okay, that one time he came out and that happened. And eventually he had to get his line straighter. And every time he did that, Pant was like hitting him over the top or sweeping him or like, and even trying some reverse sweep and all that. So it's just, Pant really outplayed Nathan Lyon in the mind games aspect of that battle.
Yeah, and I also think that for a team batting last on a 5th day pitch, India got into a situation where he said, okay, we can decide whether we want to draw it or win it. It's not up to you now, it's up to us.
Exactly. And they controlled the game in that manner, right? After a point, India couldn't lose. Like you said, ball was in India's court. It was no longer in Australia's court. You couldn't take 6 wickets in the space of like 11, 12, 13 overs on that kind of pitch. And like I was there at Leeds when Ben Stokes, like that was another miracle match. But one thing I knew is like if they start going after them, Hazelwood, Cummins, like they can get rattled because Cummins doesn't have a Yorker. As Mahan a bowler as he's an outstanding bowler, but when guys go after him, I think that's the one element of his bowling which will improve because he's still so young. But as of now, they can get rattled, and which is what happened with Hazelwood and Cummins. And the Washington Sundar hook shot of Cummins, like 21-year-old debutant, like till just 1 week ago, all he was thinking about, the best thing that could happen to him is go home and eat his mother's chakra pongal. And here he's like, batting, he's out there in the middle, the pressure's on him. Australia had bowled 2 tight overs. The way he just hooked him for 6 was, again, one of those moments of the match which we'll never forget. And that for me was the killer blow. After that,
and the next ball, he basically takes it past slip with that basic slice.
Exactly.
It was almost like a tennis shot, a left-handed tennis shot. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And like 10 of 2 balls. And then the next line over was when he's hit for 2 fours and that one ball spun off the crack, became a leg break and like went for 4 byes. And like, then you could see the smile on Lyon's face, Tim Paine's. They just resigned to the fate that, ho gaya. I mean, that day. So see, the greatness of this Indian performance was twice at Sydney and at the Gabba, they got Australia to give up on Australian soil, which does not happen very often. Like you've heard all these years, right? Oh man, we'll fight till the last ball. But I don't think Australia could. I mean, the fight was gone by then. And which I think, apart from the 2-1 series scoreline, was India's greatest achievement. Like you don't come to, using the pro wrestling analogy, you don't come to Australia and get them to submit. Like they finally tapped out. Like, they just said, "ठीक है यार, ले लो, अब क्या करें? Go now, go away." Like we don't want
given what you saw in Brisbane, I just wonder if 45 minutes or half an hour or 45 minutes more of Pant in Sydney, and who knows? Because that guy can score at 6 and over without any fuss.
Yeah, or even for that matter, when he got out, if Vihari hadn't pulled his hamstring, and Pujara that day was playing beautifully, like, hit 3 fours of Cummins of 3 balls right after Pant got out. They still needed to go at 3.1 and over. You'd never know. Even after Pant's dismissal, they could have still won it. Like, Vihari pulled his hamstring. It kind of maybe played into India's favor so that they could draw that game. Yeah. In a way. Like maybe they would have
with Vihari and Ashwin injured, I mean, that was their best choice, right? Nobody is going to score after that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If Jadeja was fit, then maybe India were favorites. Like, that would have been quite the run chase. But I'm glad that didn't happen. Like, I'm glad that ended as this poetic draw so that we got to see this. And now we don't know which one to choose from. I think Melbourne kind of has lost its sheen in comparison to Sydney.
I think each test has outdone the next.
Exactly.
Sydney outdid Melbourne, and Gabba has outdone everything now.
Everything, yeah. I think everything in the history of Indian Test cricket.
Yeah, like 2001, Lakshman Dravid, what is all that? That's all gone. Okay.
Like people but 2001, but that was at home. I know it was against this might of Australia, but come on, it's still at home. Like, it's still like.
Yeah, yes, and there is another crucial difference, I think, is like that was 3 tests and this is 4 tests. So to compete over 4 tests with a depleted team is a different ball game than competing over 3 tests with a depleted. That was also a partly depleted team, though the batting was fine. But even then, 3 tests. Yeah.
3, and the first test was not 36 all out. Like Gilchrist and Hayden swept the shit out of the Indians, but it wasn't a humiliating defeat like 36 all out. So it's I don't think there is any, and please, anyone who says 2005 Ashes was better than this, doesn't know what they're talking about.
I don't even know what you're talking about. What series? Ashes 2005? No, nothing. No, but I'll tell you what, the important thing is that 2005 Ashes, what happened was one thing, but the way they have kept the memory alive, writing, documentary, books, everything, that makes a difference. So I really hope that, and I urge you to, by the way, given that you're in such a good position, I urge you to write a book or write, something substantial, man, because it is people like you who will keep our memories bright and alive. No, I'm not joking. I'm very serious, by the way.
No, I agree. It is one of those events, moments in life where, which needs to be recorded. Like all these stories behind the scenes, right? Like, which I was in a privileged position to see what was happening. And also to like see how the Australians were reacting. Like I keep going back to Brad Haddon because he was my colleague for 5 days in the box. The shock on their face, they were like, how is this happening? And I thought I'm grateful to SEN because, like I said, after tea, generally I didn't have any stints. But on that last day, when India started getting close, they called me in with Jared Waitley for one stint for around 20, 25 minutes.
Oh, call the Indian guy in.
Call the Indian guy in to do some drama. And because I tweeted about The Undertaker the previous day. So on that morning, on day 5, when I used to do my usual pre-match thing with Peter Lawler. The Peter Lawler would start talking, and then when they came to me, Jared Waitley said, "Oh, Bharat, we have a special way to introduce you today." And then they actually played the audio clip of Brock Lesnar beating Undertaker, which I thought was sweet. So because they did that, like in my penultimate stint of the day, I said, "Well, Jared, I think the Undertaker's wobbly. The chokes, the Undertaker's wobbly. The F5 is coming anytime soon." And then they actually then called me back for the last 15-20 minutes when India won, and it's I got quite not emotional, but it was like, I did do the whole wherever you are, doff your hat to your team, whoever you are, whichever part of the world you are, be proud that you're Indian. Thoda drama.
Okay. Yeah. you kept the flag flying. And
I was like, Bharat
BMKJ.
Yeah. Full. And then they kept me on for close to an hour, the whole presentation and all that. So no, I spoke about what this means to India because it's just, I think it has eroded some element of the cynicism that always exists around Indian cricket. No, not just in the media, just generally. Oh, these overpaid guys. Oh, they always go and lift our hopes that. They don't. You lift your own hopes and then they crush it and what's the point? IPL guy, whatever, all that drama. I don't think you can, at least if India lose to England in the first test, of course, it'll all be back. But for now, at least, I kept saying that the Indian public fell in love with the Indian test team, not all over again, but over and over again, during the last 2 or 3 weeks.
And it's tough not to, right? Given the context, given the consequences.
Yeah.
If you don't fall in love with this team and if you're not moved by what they have achieved, then forget it. Then there's nothing that's going to, nothing that will. You just go and watch, some news debate on 9 o'clock news or something. That's all. That's all you can do. How can you not be moved by this team, right? Yeah.
Like I said, even the Australians, so that last stint of mine, so I called it so I said, be proud to be Indian. I said, this is the greatest test win in Indian history, cricket, greatest moment in Indian cricket history, and the greatest series win ever in history. And then Simon O'Donnell was like, oh, Bharat is getting really excited here. And then Ian Healy was there who had bet $50. I had predicted that T. Natarajan will score the winning runs on day 3. So he said, if that happens, I'll pay you $50. But so after Simon O'Donnell said, oh, Bharat is really getting excited, Ian Healy said, no. I'm totally with Bharat here. I have a tear in my eye. This is the greatest series win of all time. What this team has done, I cannot imagine the odds that they've overcome to do this. And I've still not got my $50, but he said, when India go to Australia or Australia go to India next. But you could see that everyone here was just, it's not just in India. Here, people just fell in love with this Australian team. Not just people in cricketing circles, but everywhere. They're how could they, how the hell could they just do that?
Yeah, it's almost like it was an event so freaky that you don't even know how to describe it. Even to call it the greatest series win seems a little okay, it probably is. That's fine. But is that the apt way to describe it? There's something more bizarre going on here.
Yeah. I go back to the script writing, someone writing a sports script where the underdog, not just sports films, that classic Tamil movie, where he father, mother dead, no job, no money, nothing to eat, and he'll come from there to
no, but even there, because you've seen hundreds of movies before, okay, he will come back. But nothing that we had seen in cricket before, or at least I'm sure there might have been something in the 1800s, so don't hold me to it.
Yeah.
But nothing that we have seen in the last 20, 30 years has prepared us for this, at least with the Indian team.
Exactly.
It's like this, in a way, this is pretty close to what Sri Lanka did in South Africa when they went and won 2-0, that Kusal Perera 153, because they were also like battered and injured and everything, and then they coolly went and won 2-0.
Exactly.
But that's the only series that even comes vaguely close to this.
That is true. That's so true. And people kept asking me, "Oh, this just tells you about the depth of Indian cricket." I said, no, this is not the future of Indian cricket. Who thought like T. Natarajan and Shardul Thakur, and for that matter, even Mohammad Siraj was the future of Indian cricket, or Washington Sundar? The future of Indian cricket is Shivam Mavi, Kamlesh Nagarkoti, maybe even Karthik Tyagi to an extent, and those guys, right? Or Shubman Gill, Rishabh Pant, yes, but these are like Shardul and T. Natarajan, like in their almost 30, in their late 20s. They're like these journeyman guys who are just supposed to. So don't look at this and say that the depth of Indian cricket is great. I don't like that. You're right. It's not that. It's something very different which you can't describe. It's not like.
Yeah, who would have said? Washington Sundar is a future Test player. I mean, the number. I don't think anyone would have said. I mean, he's probably they would have said he's a future one-day player, future T20, future IPL. All that is fine. But that guy comes in and he does something that he's not even known for. He bats. I mean, he started off as a batsman in junior cricket and all fine. Yeah. But he's coming and making 50, 60 in this final test, man.
Yeah, and it's crazy, right? Generally, people play first-class cricket with the hope of playing test cricket. Now, because he's played this test match, he'll have to play first-class cricket. It's strange, he's now a first-class cricketer again.
Yeah, now next time he goes to the first class, next time he plays a Ranji Trophy, imagine the pressure on him. Everybody will be like, "Oh, this guy."
Yeah, and if you're a Tamil Nadu selector now, how do you not pick him? He's already been picked in the Indian Test squad against England. If he has a good series there, I have made a bold prediction. I think it was 2:55 p.m. on Jan 19, 2021. On air, they kept asking me, who is the biggest find of the tour? I said 2:55 p.m. I may 2 tours from now, Washington Sundar will be Test captain of India. Let's see.
You have taken it. You have taken it beyond all reasonable standards, is it? Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah, exactly. He seems to have that kind of composure, temperament. He seems to have some cricketing smart, or not some, a lot of cricketing smarts. We've seen him in 2020 cricket, and the way he bowled in this match as well, and the way he batted, it was a smart innings, both in the first and second innings. And but that's the thing now. After this, we don't know what to expect. Even in India, England, I saw the squad. I'm like, Kohli's back, Ishant Sharma, Hardik Pandya. No, I want pick someone from some Praveen Tambe should come and play a test match. That's what I want to see now.
Yeah. You need Praveen Tambe needs to be the lead bowler in your attack.
Yeah, that's what we've been prepared for after this series. This run of the mill India making 500, Kohli double 100, Ishant playing. Okay, they clear bahut.
And then some guy from who has played, TNPL one match comes and takes 8 wickets against England. That is
exactly. I think this is the beginning of the attitude era of Indian cricket. Where you don't know what to expect. We won't see bikini matches, but it's almost like that.
Yeah, I think we've entered the era of the bizarre. So, this has been, on that note, this has been a fantastic chat. Thank you, Bharat, for recapping the whole series so beautifully and giving us all these, little insights that you've picked up along the way. As I've told you also on this chat, please write that book and please document this series. I will make sure that you come back on the podcast after you write the book, and I'll tell all the listeners to buy it. And wonderful. Have a great time and enjoy your the rest of the summer that you have in your idyllic Adelaide, which seems to be another planet as of now.
I know. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I am seriously contemplating writing a book on this because it's just, because I've also personally also had such an adventurous summer. It's like, and people want to read about like a personal story as well, right? Like, of yes, what's happened in the cricket, but yeah, I am very tempted, and I think on this podcast, I admit, like, I will be writing a book. So I don't know when it will be coming out, but sometime later this year. And yeah, I mean, before I reach idyllic Adelaide, I have to drive through idyllic country New South Wales to be allowed into Adelaide. So my tour's not over. So the Indians will start playing the England series before I actually reach home. So yeah, it's
Yeah. Wonderful. And thanks for giving us the breaking news here that you've written the book, and we are going to flash it across all our platforms exclusively. You have told us exclusively that Beastie Boy is going to come out with the book. And this is really thrilling. Don't contemplate and all that. Just open your laptop and start writing, or write in whatever medium you want to write. But no, and I can't stress this enough, that all your memories are really vivid now and right. So the more you put it off, the more these things tend to shift. So
exactly.
Put it all down on paper, and we will happily promote it and read it. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Bharat. Wonderful chatting.
Yeah, thanks.
He'll come back for the second. India have won the test match. India have won the series. They're going to get back for two. India home. Lords goes wild.